As usual, we are gathered here today to listen to another dispensation of the Lord Buddha's teaching. And before we commence, let us all take a moment to remind ourselves that the reason we have this gift of Dhamma, the only path to true salvation, is because of the Omniscient One, the Perfect One, the Supremely Enlightened One. It is because of his immense dedication and commitment towards the liberation of not only himself, but through himself, that of all sentient beings, that we have this path to our liberation. Bearing that in mind, let us all take a moment to pay homage to the Gautama Supreme Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. And also, before we commence, let us all take a moment to observe the 5 precepts. And as I always remind you, let us consider this a privilege rather than a right. We keep finding ourselves in this position, in this situation where we are having to observe the precepts. There will have been instances throughout the past week or so, during which the defilements in your mind were much stronger than the resolve with which you determined to abide and protect your precepts. And on those occasions, there might have been times where the precepts were broken. In the hope and prayer and determination and resolve that may this be the last time where I'm having to observe the precepts, may the virtue entailed within these precepts be part and parcel of my conscience, be part of the very fabric of who I am. In that resolve, in that determination, let us all take a moment to observe the precepts. And in order to do so, I ask you all to repeat after me and all together. Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Saṅghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi saṅghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Tatiyampi dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Tatiyampi saṅghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Saranāgamaṇaṃ sampunnaṃ. Pānātipātā vēramaṇī sikkhapaдаṃ samādhiyāmi. Adinādānā vēramaṇī sikkhapaдаṃ samādhiyāmi. Kāmesu micchāchārā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi. Musāvādā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi. Surāmēraya majjapamā daṭṭhānā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi. Tisaranena saddhiṃ pañcasīlaṃ dhammaṃ sādhukaṃ surakkitaṃ kattvā appamādena sampādetabbam. Okay, you may now all be seated. most venerable members of the Mahasangha, distinguished gathering, as well as those listening to us online, wherever in the world you may be. This is the best opportunity for us to repay our debts to all those beings who we will have come past in samsara. And that is by giving them a gift that excels all gifts, a gift that they may never have received in their life. It is therefore the prime opportunity for us to invite all the devas, brahmas, spirits, demons and the dead, reminding ourselves that each of those beings that we are about to invite have on innumerable times been mothers to us, fathers to us, have looked after us, cared for us, tended to us. And for all those debts that we owe them in return, throughout samsara, this is the opportunity for us to repay those debts. Wherever they might be, whatever material successes and pleasures they might be enjoying, until they have received the gift of Dhamma, they have not known bliss as they ought to. So, before we commence this sermon, let us all take a moment to invite them, wherever they may be in this 10,000 world systems. Whatever capacity they might have, may they find this opportunity, may they take this opportunity to join us. May they be able to witness this meritorious deed and be able to accrue merit. If any of them have today been born in woeful planes, may through the power of these merits they be able to redeem themselves from the woeful planes and be born in the blissful planes. And for all those beings out there in the blissful planes, may through the listening to this Dhamma, through understanding it, comprehending it, be able to attain the noble attainments and be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. So with that hope and wish and prayer and determination in mind on their behalf, as I now make this invitation, I invite you to extend that invitation in your hearts and in your minds out to them. May they join us, may they witness this meritorious deed, may they listen to the Dhamma, and may they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana.
Samanta Chakravalesu Atra Gachantu Devata Sadhamang Munirajasnsa Sunantu Sagga Mokkadang Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhamma Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta.
And also before we commence this sermon, let us all take a moment to remind ourselves that we are not who we used to be. Thanks to the Dhamma touching our lives and transforming our lives, we have changed beyond our wildest imaginations. You will accept and agree that we are not proud of who we used to be. If this is who you will have been in this life, then consider how you might have been, what you might have been, how we might have conducted ourselves in this infinitely long journey in samsara, not having received the gift of Dhamma and having associated with immoral, ignoble people. Those associations which defiled our minds with raga, dvesha, moha, desire, aversion and delusion, and having blinded with ignorance and attachment, avidya and tanha, innumerable will be the times where we will have offended the noble ones. The Samma Sambuddhas, the Pacceka Buddhas, Arahata Buddhas, Anagamis, Sakradagamis, Sotapannas, be they on the path or having attained the fruits, as well as the Buddha's ministry, the Sambuddha Shasana. For any words, actions or thoughts of abuse, slander, desecration that we might have directed towards them, either knowingly or unknowingly, such actions, thoughts and words may today hinder and block our progress in the Dhamma. Therefore, before we commence, let us all be humble enough, and with humility in our hearts and in our minds, let us take a moment to seek forgiveness from the noble ones for any desecration and abuse and slander we might have directed towards them. And finally, let us all make a firm resolve have made through the course of this sermon, if there are any gaps in your understanding, in your knowledge, in your comprehension, which have thus far kept you from achieving the noble attainments of Sotapanna, may you be able to do so. And if there are any among you who have already attained the state of Sotapanna made through the course of this sermon, you'll be able to fulfill the subsequent stages and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. With that firm resolve in mind, I invite you to prepare yourselves to listen to this sermon. Okay. We must all have a clear, solid, good understanding of why the Buddha actually came into this world. What was his purpose? Because, people like the Buddha, they don't just come along, just for the fun of it. Just to see how it's like in the human world. And they don't come along like that. And they come along with purpose. Sometimes their purpose is beyond our imagination. I doubt a mortal man, a mortal human being like you and I, can even begin to comprehend what the Bodhisattva might have felt, let alone the Buddha. What the Bodhisattva might have felt, having dedicated an entire samsara. From the moment he resolved, my purpose as a being in samsara is not only to make my own redemption, not only to serve myself, but also every other living being in the entire universe. Such is the resolve of a Bodhisattva. He doesn't think about his family. Why do you make a living? For whom? Next door neighbor? No. Your remit of care and duty and obligation is within your four walls. If you're a school teacher, your remit of care and duty is usually your classroom. If you're a sectional head, then maybe that section. If you're the principal, then possibly the entire school. But you have a remit. This is the frame within which, this is the remit within which my purview, this is where I operate. But there's a being called the Bodhisattva, whose remit is infinite. There are no limits to his compassion. There are no limits to, this is the number of beings I want to help. If you ask the Bodhisattva, Venerable Sir, how many beings would you like to help cross this ocean of samsara? You wouldn't get an answer from him. Because in every sense of the word, and he will mean it when he says it, I want every man and woman, every child, every animal, from the tiniest insects to mammoths, to all beings who are out there, including the Maha-Brahma, to be able to find true salvation. That is my purpose, the Bodhisattva would say. So, you and I, we just can't fathom that. But we have all been blessed. It really takes something, folks, to be born in an era where a Buddha comes along. I do remind you from time to time about this blessing. How rare it is to be born. And you're not just born, you're humans. Last time I checked. And you have got to listen to the teaching. Wow. Considering all the beings out there, many trillions and trillions and trillions of beings out there with no hope. How lucky do you think you are? Because throughout samsara, we all searched for one thing, and that was happiness. The only problem was we were looking for it in all the wrong places. The Buddha is someone who comes along and says, what you're looking for is fine. It's just the way you're going about it is wrong. You're looking for the right thing in all the wrong places. That's why you ain't finding it. That's why you haven't found it yet. So we need to understand what is the purpose of a Buddha's advent into this world. You will know by now that the cause of all suffering is attachment. Right? Everyone knows that. Yeah? Is that a safe assumption? Everyone knows that? Attachment causes suffering. The Buddha comes into this world and he preaches the Dhamma. He teaches you to let go. Agreed? No. The Buddha can't teach you to let go. That happens. He can't teach you to let go. You can't let go. That happens. Letting go happens. It's not something you do. It just happens. Okay, who here has aged deliberately? Okay, I'm aging today. Right. Okay, come on, let's age. Is that something you've done, or is that something that's just happened? It happened. Can you stop it? No, it just happens. You can't stop it. Letting go is like aging, in the sense that it just happens. But there is something that needs to happen before that. And that is seeing the truth. Realization. The Buddha's purpose of coming into this world is to help you realize the truth. That's all he really came into this world to do. Help you realize the truth. In other words, help you realize this is where you need to go about. You need to look for happiness. Throughout samsara, we thought happiness can be found in attaching ourselves to various things. Just look into your own lives. How did you find happiness from the day you were born to the day you came along to the teaching, or to the day you actually discovered the teaching? How did we find happiness in our lives? Was it not through attachment? Having decided that X, Y, Z makes me happy, I went after X, Y, Z. X was money, Y was other material things, Z was women, whatever. So we thought, bringing all these things which possess happiness to me, they will leave me happiness and then they'll go off. So I'm left with happiness. It's like we expected material things to deliver happiness to us. Like, when you ring up the pizza company, Pizza Hut, right? When can you deliver my pizza? We'll be there in 45 minutes, sir. Thank you very much. So like that, all those material things out there, we expected them to deliver happiness. Therefore, we kept inviting them into our lives. Just ask yourselves, from the day you actually began to listen to the Dhamma, did you let go, or did that just happen? Some of you might have tried to let go, deliberately, intentionally letting go. That's not very effective. In fact, those deliberate letting goes actually only lead you to suffering even more. Because what happens then is the pressure, the stress, the strain, they start building up in your mind. Someone might decide, right from today, I'm not going to watch TV. They want to watch it, but they've just decided, no, I'm not going to watch TV. I want to let go watching TV. I want to let go, they think. so they stop watching TV. The TV is at home, they don't watch it. A week goes by, 2 goes by, 3 goes by. They still want to watch it. They're just forcing themselves not to watch it. What you don't know is actually what's happening in the mind is the pressure is building up. The urge is building up inside. It's going to keep building up, like if you've seen how after a rain, in the gutter, there's a few drops of rain or a few drops of water that's left behind start dripping into a pot or something. These drops are very tiny. You look at a drop of water and you go, but that can't do anything. That's just a drop of water. It's nothing. But given enough time, it starts to accumulate. So given enough time, it's going to fill up the pot. And now you can't even lift it. It's so heavy. It's actually tiny drops of water that make up the oceans. Through the power of accumulation, the pressure that's building up inside of you will break you. And what's going to happen then is one day you won't be able to tolerate the pain, you won't be able to tolerate the stress, and then you go and sit down in front of the TV, switch it on. And now, that stress relief that you experience will be ecstatic. You will experience that, I have never experienced so much pleasure out of watching TV. Wow, this is what I've been missing over the last 3 weeks. And then that experience of pleasure that you feel at that time will bind you even more than when you were originally bound to that source of, apparently pleasure. Then the breaking that bond is going to be even harder. Because you switch on the TV after 3 weeks and you realize, this is what I've been missing all my life. Found it. It's going to be so difficult to break it after that. So the Buddhist philosophy, the Buddhist teaching, folks, is not to let go. That just happens. So don't let go of anything. Just let it happen. The Buddhist teaching, the Buddha's advent, the Buddha coming into this world is really to help us realize the truth. The more you realize the truth, the more you will be able to notice, the more you will be able to witness within yourself the letting go process taking place. Just watch it. Just let it happen. Don't let go. Just let it happen. There are some things you have to let go though, whether you like it or not. These are the unwholesome deeds. That, let go. The dasakusa, let go. Don't wait for that the letting go to happen. That you mustn't wait for. You must let go of that immediately. If you kill, if you steal, if you engage in sensual or sexual misconduct, depending on how far you want to take it, if you lie, if you backstab, if you slander, if you engage in frivolous speech, and if you have thoughts of strong desire, covetousness, and ideas of permanent skepticism, those you have to let go. You can't wait for the letting go to happen eventually. Those things you have to let go deliberately. But everything else, raga, dvesha, moha, desire, aversion and delusion, for that the only medicine there is wisdom. The wiser you become, not how does one become wiser? The more grey hairs you have, the wiser you are? Does that work about right? Or the more degrees you have, the more letters you have after your name, the wiser you are? That's not how it works. Who's wisest among you? What do we need to check? Age? Do you all want to stand in the ascending order of age and then we can work out who's wisest? No, it doesn't work like that. Is it what title you bear in society? No, it doesn't work like that. Are men more wiser than women? Men wiser than women? Or is it women wiser than men? No, it doesn't work like that. There's only one determining factor of how wise someone is, and that is their comprehension of the Dhamma. Not knowledge, not how much you know about the Dhamma. That's not the determining factor. It doesn't matter if you are fluent in all the books of the Abhidhamma. That's not what matters. This is somewhere I want you to be careful, really. Because, for some people, when you begin to study the Dhamma, it becomes so appealing. Study of the Dhamma becomes so appealing, so attractive, so inspiring, that you think, okay, I want to go and study more Dhamma. So then before you know it, you will fall into the trap of gaining more knowledge of the Dhamma, but not necessarily gaining more comprehension of it. The Sinhala words, of course, you'll be familiar with Danuma and Avbodha. It's not the knowledge we're after, it's the comprehension. How much this has sunken in. Usually how much you have been able to let go is a good acid test. How much letting go has happened. That is a good test. When you start off the 10 non-meritorious deeds, one day you could come along to a sermon and think, from today on, Swami Nahasa said, don't do unwholesome deeds, so I'm not going to do it. You can make that resolve, but inside of you, you still want to do it. That may be the case. There may be some who are like that. You don't lie because Swami Nahasa said don't lie. You don't steal because Swami Nahasa said don't steal. You don't engage in sensual or sexual misconduct because Swami Nahasa said don't do it. You need to move from that. Because Swami Nahasa said don't do it is not going to last for very long. Because one day you're going to say, oh, to hell with Swami Nahasa, I need this. That's like your clutch balance. You can't be in clutch balance forever because your legs are going to tie and then you have to give way. You can't do that forever. He said so, she said so, my father said so, my teacher said so, so don't do it. It's very short-lived, that. We should be in this for the long haul. This is not a short-haul flight, long haul. Tolerating, bearing, being patient is not everlasting. It's very short-term, those fixes, very temporary fixes. Because the reason I talk to you about this is because there may be some among you. And this is good that you actually make effort to restrain yourself and keep away from the unwholesome deeds. And of course, try and do it. And continue to do it for as much as you can. But in the meantime, make sure you put in place a good foundation. Make sure you put in place a solid foundation, and that is the Dhamma. Because if you don't, pretty soon you won't be able to bear it. You won't be able to tolerate it. Some people, they come up to us and they say such things. Happened to, someone came along last week and said, Swami Nahasa, as a married person, I restrained myself and I never gave in to sensual desires. I was honest to my partner. And even though there was the urge, I didn't give in. But now it's becoming difficult. It's becoming difficult. I've tried to restrain myself. I've tried to control myself because it's a bad thing. And I know I mustn't do it. I know I shouldn't do it, but I want to do it. Help me. So of course, in Dhampasa, they will have learned. Kamesu miccachara veramani sikkapadam samadhi. How many times might you have recited that? More than the number of hairs on your head by now. Those of you who still have hair left. I don't. I'm talking about myself actually. Don't worry. Oh, you all got lovely hair, okay? So I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about myself. See, that is very short-lived. Because the pressure will keep building up. there's a young audience here today, most of you. This is why I'm talking to you about some of these things. Given the indoctrination that will have happened in your life, all these drushi that will have been dropped into your head, into your mind, it's almost natural that people will want to explore sensual delight because they feel that has been delightful. This is the view that has been implanted in them. Sensual delight. You will restrain yourself because it's the wrong thing to do. It's bad to do that. You could go to hell. I don't want to go to Apai, so I'm not going to do it. But for how long can you do that? Because one day you're going to be, to hell with hell. I need this. And that day, you will need the Dhamma. So the purpose of the Buddha's advent, the purpose of the Buddha's coming into this world is really to not advise you to let go, is to give you his teaching, to realize the truth. Once you have realized the truth, the letting go will just happen, automatically. There may be some among you who want to go forth, become monks. There may be others who have decided one day I want to become a nun. Maybe. Or you want to live a monastic life, a celibate life, as an anagarika or anagarika. There may be those among you like that. Maybe those listening in. Earlier on today someone came along and this person wants to become an anagarika. So he's speaking to us and he's talking about his life. Telling us, this is why I want to do this, this is why I want to do this. But talking to this person, it soon dawned on us that they've only been listening to the Dhamma for a very short period of time, maybe a month or two, and they have decided, right, I want to go into monastic life. And I sometimes almost argue with Guru Handuru, because every time he gives a sermon, he really inspires everyone, come along, you have to do this, let's all become a monk, let's all become nuns and get this done. And so I almost argue with him sometimes, Swami, what you expect of people to do may sometimes not be achievable. Because there are so many ties that have kept them bound to a lay life. All these desires that they have learned to live with. And so letting go is not something that people are able to do so easily. Although this is what we may wish other people to be able to do so. So to this person, when we spoke with this person, we said, ease up. Whoa, easy. Slow down. What determines if you will attain Nibbana is not you becoming an anagarika. What determines if you will attain Nibbana is your understanding of the Dhamma. All this haste, this rush to become an anagarika is not going to get you any closer to Nibbana. What can usually happen is this person comes along, leaves behind a lay life, all those sensual desires that they so enjoyed in their lay lives, and then now there's no way to satisfy these desires. And then the pressure starts building up. And it keeps building up. This is the nature of this vexation, a vexatious mind. This is the nature of it. We've talked about examples, right? Remember I talked about what I used to witness at the airport, coming and going. How people would greet each other when they met up, reunited with their loved ones. Usually the gesture that is exchanged is directly proportional to the time that they have spent apart from each other. If it's a short period of time, usually it's a pat on the back, handshake, quick hug, off we go. Right? If it's a few months to maybe a year or so, then it's a longer hug. There's usually a peck on the cheek, right? So all these niceties. And usually if it's several years, then tears of joy start to flood. That reunion lasts for like 5 minutes. The whole length of 5 minutes they're kissing and cuddling, and you're like, guys, get a room. At that time they forget where they are. Because so much tension has been building up, all of that is released at that moment in time. And that pleasure that is experienced is uncontainable. It's like also almost like the heart blossoms with pleasure. So, when you keep restraining yourself, when you want it but restrain yourself, all you need to do is allow time. There's a huge danger here. This is why I'm talking to you about this, right? Because I know there are people among you who actually want to do this full time. There are people among you who want to go forth, become a monk, right? Or become an anagarika or anagarika, or in whatever capacity to be able to do this. Or even if it's in your lay life, right? If you have decided, I'm going to keep away or restrain myself from certain things that you used to do. Forcefully doing it is not the answer to the problem. Unwholesome deeds, do that forcefully, yes, starting now. No, actually starting yesterday. But at the same time, make sure you take the teaching, take the Dhamma. Let that implant yourself, let the Dhamma implant in your mind. Let it grow, let it foster. Because if you don't do that, it's going to become torture. And then pretty soon you're going to want relief from that. Because you'll then think that it's the Dhamma that is putting you into vexation. You'll begin to think that the virtue or the precepts that I have vowed to abide by is what is putting me into vexation. This is the source of my vexation. Then you start to curse the Dhamma. You start to curse the people who have been talking to you about the Dhamma. Yes, there are some couples like that. They walk up to us. Sometimes it's the husband, sometimes it's the wife who wants to go further in the Dhamma. Right? Or one of the two partners will come along, listen to sermons, and the other is not so interested. And then what happens is this person, who comes along to the teachings, to the sermons, they no longer seek that kind of enjoyment in sensual life or in a lay worldly life. Now that transformation doesn't happen with a partner who stays at home. So their expectations are what used to be. That hasn't changed. The partner who stayed at home, their expectations are what used to be. But the person who's been coming along to listen to the sermons, their expectations have changed. They want a different kind of lifestyle now. Now there's a disparity, mismatch. Used to be match. That's why they got onto the Purva. Now no longer match. Now problems. So what happens then? See, this is why I told you, don't go to listen to Dhamma. They ruined you. Our married life has been cursed by what? The Dhamma. Then they start to curse the Swaminwahanses who've been preaching the Dhamma. They go all the way up to the Buddha. They start cursing the Buddha. These things happen even in the time of the Buddha. People used to curse the Buddha. How dare that man come along and take my husband from me? How dare he? Who does he think he is? All this brainwashing that he comes and does. If he comes along to the village, then all the men in the village would disappear the following day. So people used to curse the Buddha. So how can we expect any different? The reason for this is the lack of Dhamma. Until you know that your family, the people who you are living with, have started to take the Dhamma, you have to be very patient with them. Don't force your new lifestyle upon them. Remember, you used to be just like them. Don't forget that. Otherwise you wouldn't have gotten onto the Purva with them, would you? Otherwise you wouldn't have decided to have kids. You changed, not them. You changed. Now how can you point the finger at the other person? It's you who changed. And the same goes for you as well. If you are not convinced that the Dhamma is the only solution to all of your mental problems, all your psychological problems, there will be a day when you will look elsewhere. There are some men who have, become monks, people who become monks, choose an ordained life. And then after a while they say, Swaminatha, I am reminded of the lay life that I used to live. I can't do this anymore. These are people who don't realize that what they have just found is an oasis in the middle of a desert. So what they're asking for now is, can I go back to the desert, please? They don't realize that they are actually in the oasis. And any step out of this oasis is back in the desert. But they don't realize that. So they seek answers outside the Dhamma. Ask yourself, are you someone who is still looking for answers outside the Dhamma for any mental vexation? Any mental stress, any mental pressures, any mental strains and pain points? Are you looking for answers outside the Dhamma? This is a good test of, are you ready? Are you ready for this? You must be absolutely 100% convinced that I should not, I must not. There's no point. It's pointless to seek answers outside the Dhamma. Because that's where you've been looking for answers all your life. You haven't found it in your 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. What makes you think you're going to find it now? Ask yourself, I don't know this, so you have to ask yourself. People come and ask me, Swaminatha, have I understood the Dhamma? Beats me. I don't know. So my question back is, what sort of problems do you have in your life? I don't like my wife. Why? She's not nice to me anymore. She doesn't talk nicely to me anymore. So, we need to change her. She needs to fix herself. Oh, I see. What was the question you asked me for? Have I understood the Dhamma? What do you think? Why? Where are they finding answers? Looking for answers? Outside the Dhamma. If there's any problem in your life, right? Let me give you 2 minutes. Just ask yourself, in the past week, okay? In the past week, I'll give you 2 minutes on the clock. In the past week, for any mental pains that you experienced, not physical, I was hungry. Where do you look for answers? In the Dhamma? No. Dhamma is not a fridge. And it's not a takeaway either. If you're hungry, then grab yourself something to eat. You have a headache. Where do you look for answers? At the pharmacy, not in the temple. You're feeling cold. Now what do? Dhamma? No. The 4 requisites are called requisites because you require them. There's no choice about that. You need it. As human beings, we need the 4 requisites. It's a nice to have. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. The 4 requisites. So, ask yourself, in the last week, were there any points in your life, in the last week, the week that is gone by, where there was a mental problem, right? So some kind of pain, someone shouted at you, someone scolded you, someone pointed a finger at you and said, you shouldn't have done that, you shouldn't have done this. Someone blamed you, someone faulted you. Or something happened that was against your liking, against your wish, against your desires. Where you thought, the problem is out there. Now ask yourself. Self-evaluation. Don't ask me, have you understood the Dhamma? Have I understood the Dhamma? Here's how you check. I'm giving you 2 minutes. Try this out. Just ask yourself. So what do you think? Have you understood the Dhamma? Did it at least dawn on you a little bit later on? Hey, I shouldn't have gotten angry at that. What a fool I was. The problem's with me, not out there. Why did I get angry with that person? At least later on, subsequently, did you realize, no, something's wrong, I shouldn't have done that. Then that's a start. But if you were convinced, even at that point in time, problem's not with me, problem's out there, then you still have a long way to go. And I'm talking about people shouting at you, people scolding you, people finding faults with you. There's a much further state from that. Do you think that's beautiful? That's the next question I have. Do you think these flowers are beautiful? When you see them, do you find them beautiful instantly? Instantaneously, you look at pretty flowers. If that's the thought that comes to mind, there's still further you need to go in the path. Because you need to keep going until the day comes where actually, no matter what kind of flower I show you, you're going to say, it's just flowers. I don't see beauty. Because beauty is artificial, remember? Beauty is not natural. People say, I like natural beauty. There is no such thing. Some guys, they like naturally beautiful girls, right? Honey, I don't like you using makeup. Why? I like natural beauty. La natural. That's my style. Where is natural beauty? It doesn't exist. Beauty is not natural. Beauty is a made-up thing. That's why they say it lies in the eyes of the beholder, but we know that it lies in the mind of the beholder. So that's where we need to get to. The sights you see, the sounds you hear, the smells you are able to inhale, the tastes that you sense, the sensations that you feel. Now I'm going to be asking you pretty soon, are you still seeing beauty in flowers, in people, in pictures, in the sunset, in waterfalls? I'm going to be asking you that question pretty soon. I'm going to be asking you the question, do you like sweet to sour? Is there a taste you find more preferable? And if you have an answer, then you still have further to go. These questions, they actually cannot be an answer. Although people have come up with answers to these questions, these are questions that cannot be answered. In real terms, there cannot be an answer to this question, do you prefer sweet to salt tea? Do you prefer sour to sweet? There cannot be an answer to that question. Anyone with a sane mind cannot answer that question. To be able to answer that question, you have to be insane. So if you can answer that question, which of these two tastes do you prefer? That's a good insanity test. So if you want to check if you're insane, simple. How do you like your tea? If you have an answer to that question, you're insane. But how do they say out there in the world? When you ask someone the question, darling, do you like sweet or do you like sour? I don't mind. Do you like salt or do you like sour? I don't mind. Do you like white or do you like blue? I don't mind. What are people going to say? This guy's insane. He's mad. Look at him. He has no taste. Tasteless fellow. Don't people get ridiculed about that? When you don't have a preference about something? They say, otherwise they'll say, you don't care, do you? Just don't care. In married life, you'll find plenty of examples of this. Wife takes husband shopping. Right? Goes to the furniture store. Honey, what do you think? These two. Which one do you think looks better? Whichever, honey. Whatever you like. I don't mind. You don't care, do you? Or you go buy a sari. Right? This one or that one, darling? Now, if you say, I don't mind, whichever. What is the response? You know the response. You've all been there, done that, worn the t-shirt, right? Bought the album? You don't care, do you? You're always like this. You're going to get complaints. You don't care. So in a worldly life, it's wrong to not care. But in a supra-mundane existence, where you're moving away from the subjective to a world which is purely objective, if you care, you're wrong. So really, it's wrong to care. My, what a statement that is. That could be completely wrongly interpreted by someone. It's wrong to care. What does everyone talk about? We must care. We must love. Right? You must love. Love thy neighbor. But it's wrong to care. It's wrong to love. It's wrong to have a preference. Because if you have a preference, if you care, then you have an attachment. And if you have an attachment, then you're suffering. So, in a worldly existence, you must suffer. That's the right way to live. Suffer. If you don't suffer, you're not a human being. You're not human. You're inhumane, people say. Heartless fellow. You get told off, you get ridiculed for not caring. But actually the Buddha says, if you care, then you're wrong. It's wrong to care. You understand what I mean by this, right? I don't mean don't care about the person who's broken a leg. You need to go and help that person. Why do we do these sermons? Because we care. But that's not the care I'm talking about. This is about which color do you like? That color. You're wrong. Because when asked the question why, you have no answer. This is why it's wrong. Because it's not logical. It's illogical to have a preference. Why sweet to sour? Why? No answer. No. You've just given me a baseless answer. Two and two is 4. Why? You can reason it, can't you? There's logic behind it. White and blue, which one looks nicer? Pink or green, which one's nicer? You'll all have an answer, but when I ask you why, now you won't have an answer. That's the problem. It's illogical. A logical mind can't answer that question. Only an unreasonable, illogical mind can answer that question. So are you a logical person? Are you a reasonable person? Because you can't reason. How can you call yourself people say, I'm a reasonable fellow. When people talk with me, you can expect me to be reasonable. People say like that, right? I'm a reasonable chap, I'm a reasonable guy, right? I'm not unreasonable, I'm reasonable. Which means, I have reasons. I can give you reason. for my choices. Okay, so I'll ask you, what color do you like? Now an answer will come in your mind. Now I ask you, why? Now you have no answer. So how can you say you're reasonable? You're all unreasonable. We are all unreasonable. Because we all have a preference. And when asked the question, why? No answer. So how can you expect another person to live happily with you? Why did you make all those promises on the Poru? Why did you say, till death do us part? I will make you happy, my love, forever and ever and ever, and even after. When you knew it's not something you can ever do. Did you not know that? It's not something you can ever do. How can you make another person happy? Okay, then come on, make me happy. Go on. Is that what you're doing to make me happy? Make me happy. How can you make me happy? First you're going to have to ask me. Swami, what makes you happy? What makes you happy, Swami? Then I have to give you an answer to that. I want you to talk like this. I want you to walk like this. I want you to eat like this. I want you to sleep like this. I want you to dance like this. I want you to sing like this. Right? So I have to give you some answers. Then what you have to do is you're going to have to go and do them. Walk like this and talk like this and sleep like this and dance like this and sing like this. The way I asked you to do it. Hoping that these things will make me happy. But after I've told you, I've changed my mind. Actually, you know what? No, I like you to walk the other way. I want you to walk backwards. That's what makes me happy. Because people's desires and wants, they change. Have you not had people like that in your lives? Today they want one thing, the next day they want something else. And besides, you know that happiness, or this thing that we call pleasure, is relief from vexation. So it depends on what they're vexing about. Today they're vexing about paripu. The next day they're going to be vexing about potatoes. Next day they're going to be vexing about chicken curry. So, you're going to have to keep finding, actually not what makes you happy. You're going to have to ask the question, what makes you sad? What makes you disappointed? What are you vexed about? And then try and relieve that person from vexation. That is how you can make someone happy. But again, that's not true happiness. Have any one of you experienced redundancy? Or at least know someone who's been made redundant? Either redundancy or divorce, which is pretty much the same thing in the way I see it. What's divorce? It's another form of redundancy. Right? You can no longer serve my needs, therefore I make you redundant. We find someone else to do the job. That's what divorce is. Being made redundant. Some people get voluntary redundancies. That's when that's a nicer deal. Voluntary redundancy. But when it comes to marriage, usually it's not a voluntary redundancy. It's forced redundancy. You have to. If any of you have experienced either divorce or redundancy, or know someone who's gone through that, just think about how people feel about such situations and those circumstances. Just consider for a moment. Most of the time people feel cheated. Sometimes people feel, I've dedicated an entire life, my lifetime, either to my employer, to the business, or to the partner that I've lived with. And now you're telling me you no longer want me in your life? Or the employer tells you no longer want me at your business? That's why you've made me redundant? You feel cheated. When I used to work back in the UK and, when the financial crisis hit, a lot of people were made redundant in the company that I used to work in. And I know some people, who'd worked there for 35, 40 years. That's a long time for someone to dedicate their life to one place. Some of the things that they used to say, I worked with this company for 40 years. And without as much as thinking twice about it, they have made me redundant. I feel like I have been cheated. I feel like I've been chewed and then spat out. Exactly. The reason people feel that is because they have given their 100% to that relationship, to that employer. And then to be said, we no longer need you. Without any remorse about it. That can be quite hurtful, quite painful for people to bear, to tolerate. Now think about samsara for a moment. All the things you've done in samsara, all the things you have done to be in samsara, amounts to nothing. The way samsara treats you, without any care about how much you have dedicated your life, all the abhisankara that you have done to keep going in samsara. If samsara was your employer, the only thing you've gotten from that employer is hardship and torture and pain. When did that employer ever bring you any pleasure, any happiness, any joy? But how much of your life did you dedicate towards it? To keep samsara going? That's what you're doing right now, keeping it going. Because every time a thought passes away and you do the abhisankara to put it back up there, to keep it going, one more step, one more league, one more inch, one more chitta, that's again building samsara up. Keeping your employer going. But what do you get in return? Nothing. Nothing in return. But that hasn't stopped you to this date. Keep going, hopeful, determined. I think at the previous meditation session that we had, not last week or the week before that, I was praising the candidates who came along for their resolve, simply their power of determination. It's baffling. Such resolve, such determination I had never seen before. This determination to seek pleasure, no matter what. How resolved are you in your search for pleasure? When we talk about the Buddha and we talk about his paramita, right? There's one called the Virya paramita, right? Which is about his effort. The effort with which he exerted himself to becoming a Buddha. And we talk about it and we say, wow, that's something, that really is something. That determination, that resolve is something amazing. I think the Panchapanas Jataka Pada, or the 550 tales of the Bodhisattva, They should take away all the chapters about resolve and effort, about the Bodhisattva, and replace that with chapters of your life. The determination that you have, the Bodhisattva didn't have. Now, I'm serious. He gave up 2,500 years ago. What did he give up? The search for pleasure. The search for pleasure, he gave up. He said, no, you know what, I can't do this. But look at us. We are so determined, aren't we? We are still going for it. Our Buddha, he couldn't do it, I'll do it. What does the Buddha know about pleasure? Look at me. Such exemplary resolve and determination, never seen before. Fantastic. They should replace those chapters about the Virya Paramita from the Bodhisattva's life, the Pansipanas Jataka, and replace that actually with life stories about us. Our pursuit, our resolve for pleasure is unforeseen, never seen before. It's remarkable. Because you've come along so far in samsara, have never found it, but you still haven't given up. The Buddha gave up 2,500 years ago, but we are still going. We will find it somehow. He couldn't, but I'll find it. Isn't that how you feel? Are you not all resolved on finding pleasure right now? Despite these sermons and continuously saying, actually, pleasure is just man-made, it's all artificial, it doesn't exist out there. But what does your mind tell you? Oh, shut up, Amazuru, we can do it. We can do this. Even if the Buddha couldn't, I'll do this. And I'll show you how it's done. Such resolve, such determination, if only you applied to Nibbana, you'd be a long way ahead of all the others. I'm giving you a compliment, folks, come on. I'm praising your resolve, I'm praising your determination. Unforgiving and relentlessly striving for pleasure, never seen before. Such resolve and such determination. Even the Buddha didn't have it. So you're way ahead of the Buddha. We all are. Not something to be proud about, really. Something to be ashamed about. This is why I say, even the search for pleasure, you can't let go. It just has to happen. When you begin to see the truth, when you realize the truth, the search for pleasure stops. The simplest way to put path to happiness is this. Stop looking for it. That's the simplest way I could put it. If you want happiness, the simplest way I can put it is stop looking for it. And you will be happy. Because how do we go looking for happiness? Well, how do we find happiness? We go looking for it. What is abhisankara? The search for happiness. Expecting that happiness is out there, we go looking for it. That very process is what takes away our happiness. The very exertion of ourselves to seek happiness, for the search of happiness, is what takes away our happiness. So the moment you stop looking for happiness, you're happy. Yes or no? The moment you stop looking for happiness, you're happy. The Buddha's purpose of coming into this world, the reason he gave his philosophy is to teach us that in very simple terms. This is what he taught us. Stop looking for happiness and then you'll be happy. Because when we are looking for happiness, it's there. So now you go looking for it. Would you go looking for something that doesn't exist? When was the last time you went looking for angels? You read them in fairy tale books, right? Are you still looking for them? I remember when I was first taught about Santa. Right, as a young child, my parents said, right, Santa is gonna, if you behave yourself, then Santa is gonna bring you a present. So I waited for Santa. I remember to this day, right, waking up on Christmas Day. I mean, I was never a Christian, but the concept of Santa, it's a universal concept. So everyone waits for Santa to come on Christmas Eve. So on Christmas Day, I remember waking up and moving my pillow out of the way and my mattress, and I was looking for where might he have left my present. I went round the house looking for the present that Santa might have brought me, but there wasn't any. I was quite disappointed that day. So I waited for the next Christmas and the next Christmas, until one day the truth was given to me. Putta, Santa is not real. That was a jaw-dropping experience. What do you mean Santa is not real? Santa is not real. It's made up. Oh, sorry. I just realized there'll probably be quite young children listening to these sermons. Yikes. Is it streaming or can we edit that bit out? So the day I realized that actually Santa's not real, I stopped waiting for Santa to come. Some people wait for Peter Pan to bring them fairy dust. But Peter Pan's not real. Some people wait for Cinderella. No, they do. Some children expecting, Cinderella's going to come today. Come and meet me. Did you not all have, when you read these fairy tales as a young child, whoever your hero was, whoever your heroine was, did you not think, one day I'm going to meet this person? Take me to Neverland. Right? I'm going to be happy there. I was like that. But then one day you realize, that's not true. Then you stopped looking. You stopped searching. Therein was your happiness. Because for as long as you were looking for it, could you ever be happy? No, because every day would be a waiting. In waiting, searching, waiting, waiting. Today, maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, they'll come. Someday they'll come. This is what people say hope is. Hope keeps you alive. People say, right? Hope keeps you alive. True. What is another word for hope? Vexation. Vexation keeps you alive. Absolutely. Why do you want to live the next moment? Think carefully and answer. Why do you want to live the next moment? To relieve yourself from vexation in this moment. So what is it that keeps you alive? Vexation. Why does an arahant not have a desire to live the next moment? Because there's no vexation. Therefore, there's no need to relieve themselves from vexation, him or herself from vexation. The desire to live is based on vexation. I want to be alive now and the next moment and tomorrow. Why? Because I want to relieve myself from vexation. All these problems I have to solve. I need to solve these problems. The problem I have right now is the vexation that's in my mind right now. That's why I want to be alive for the next moment. Relieve myself from it. But the day where there is zero vexation in your mind, then you will not need to live another moment because there's no vexation to relieve yourself from. So hope is another word for vexation. Now what do people say? Who gives them hope? I'm not going to say it out loud. Right? People go to religious places of worship and they say, this person, that person, this divine being gives me hope. In other words, expectation of a beautiful future is another word for vexation. Promise is another word for vexation. What is a promise? It's another word for vexation. I will love you forever. Promise is another word for vexation. Putta, do all your homework and you can play on the computer. is another word for vexation. I mean, isn't that how parents get children to do what they want? Thank God for vexation, right? How do you get anyone to do something for you? By vexing them. How does an employee get an employee to do something for them? Vex them. Get them vexed. Get them all vexed up. Parents, children, husbands, wives, right? That's all it is. Either vex them or relieve them from vexation. It's one of these two. Target setting, vexation. Goals, dreams, ambitions, vexations. To lead a successful life, you need to have goals. Of course. Of course. What kind of goals can people have? I've told you about the goals I used to have. You can have financial goals. So you can be vexed about your finances. You can have health goals. In other words, you can be vexed about your health. You can have friends and family goals. In other words, you can be vexed about your friends and family. Lots of types of goals. You can have education goals, professional goals. So you can be vexed about your education. You can be vexed about your profession. Goals is another word for vexation. I'm talking about goals where you have an expectation. An arahant may have a goal, but with no expectation. If it turns out, it turns out. If it doesn't, so what? So, for instance, the Buddha, when he went to meet the 5 ascetics, when he went to meet the 5 ascetics, he wanted to preach them the Dhamma so that they could find realization for themselves. But what if it didn't work out? He would never have gone to visit them if it wasn't going to work out, because we're talking about the Buddha who sees the future, right? and who knows each person's capacity to understand the Dhamma. It may be that if the Buddha was sat on this seat, he might not even open his mouth. Why? He might scan all of us in the room and go, there's not a soul in here who can understand a word I'm about to say, so I shall remain quiet. So aren't you lucky that the Buddha is not here to preach to you right now? Because you'd all have to go. You'll come here, no sermon, then you'll have to go back home. Thankfully, the Buddha is not here, so you get to listen to a sermon. See, I told you at the beginning, you're so lucky. So when the Buddha preaches, he has no expectation that this person, that person, so this person has to understand the Dhamma. But the thing is though, if they're not going to understand the Dhamma, he wouldn't preach in the first place. So he just remained quiet. There are times when there will be a large gathering of people waiting for the Buddha to preach, and he's quiet. Yeah. And he's just waiting for the right person to turn up. He knows that this person, I can't remember the name of the lady. Probably come to me later on. Peshakari, I think it's the Sinhala term. I don't know what the English word is for that. So there was a person by that name. There was a large gathering sat in front of the Buddha, waiting for the Buddha to start preaching, but he never said a word. An entire afternoon they were there, not a word. And then this lady comes along from somewhere, and that's when he started to preach. So when later on they asked Buddha, why did you not preach? Well, I was here for her. I waited for her arrival because she's the only person who's going to understand what I'm about to preach to you. Everyone else is not going to get it. So I'm not going to bother. Because otherwise, that would also be attiyati harayati jigucchati. What is the point if you can't understand the Dhamma and I start talking to you? Useless or useful? Useless. Imagine the moment I open my mouth, you all start to fall asleep. Now what is the point of me preaching? What am I preaching with? Cats and dogs? Or chairs and desks and cushions? No, there's no point. Right? So if you all fall asleep at one point, I'm going to stand up, get up and walk out of here. But thankfully there's usually at least one or two people awake. Otherwise, even the exercise of preaching the Dhamma can be attiyati harayati jivuchati. That was a very sly remark, wasn't it? No, you're not like you used to be. You're much better now. I think you have taken on board the advice I have given you. Try and get some sleep before you turn up for the sermons. That's really good. Try and not take a heavy meal before you sit for a sermon. So you have started to take my advice, because I can see everyone from where I'm sat. I can see how alert you are. Because what usually happens is, based on who's listening, the sermon takes a twist and a turn as it flows. So I don't have a set number of things I want to talk to you when I come and sit down here. It just flows depending on who's paying attention and who needs it, who needs what. Depends on what you need and who needs it. That's how the sermon flows. Sometimes I start somewhere, middle is something else, and the end is something completely unrelated. That's just how it flows. So I don't have an agenda when I come and sit here, except for the agenda of, I want to try and help you all to attain your salvation. That's the only agenda. How it's delivered is just on the fly. That just comes out. Yes, sir. Yes. Some sermons the Buddha, for example, take Venerable Sariputta. The sermon during which Venerable Sariputta became an Arahant was actually not directed towards him. He was directed towards his uncle, or his cousin, or some relation of his, whose name was Diganaka. So the sermon was directed towards someone else. But Sariputta, the Venerable Sariputta, became an Arahant, and the other person listened to the sermon, only became a Sotapanna. Now, the thing is, because I'm not the Buddha, I can't give you the answer of who did the Buddha actually direct the sermon to. Because it may have been that the Buddha knew, when I am about to preach now, Sariputta is going to become an Arahant, therefore, and this man sat in front of me is only going to become a Sotapanna, so I'm going to cover them both in one sermon. If this is how a Buddha's mind would work, I can only imagine. So he will sit here, if he was sat here, he would scan the room and check how many of you will walk away Sotapannas, how many of you will walk away Sakradagamis, how many will walk away Anagamis, and how many will not walk away but remain Arahants. If you're an Arahant, you'll probably not walk away, you'll remain. Right? And then he'll work out what word do you need to hear for that to happen. At what volume. With what intensity. What example is going to work for you. You know, think about the scriptures. If you had any chance to go through the scriptures, think about some of the metaphors that he uses, some of the similes that he uses. You know, it depends on who sat down listening to the sermon. You know, if that is your profession, that is your trade. For some people, who would work with, if they were potters, then sometimes the examples that he would have used, the metaphors and the similes, would be to do with pottery. If they were herdsmen, then it would be to do with a similar kind of trade. So if they were weavers, then he would use something that would be relatable to the person who's listening to it. If they were fire god worshippers, right, then he would use examples to do with that. So he doesn't need to ask you the question, sir, what is your profession? And madam, how about you? He doesn't need to ask that question because he knows. He's omniscient, knows everything there is to know. So what he would do is scan the room and check how many of you are capable of making use of this sermon, and at what point you're going to be able to do this, and then he would, based on that, he would deliver the sermon. So 100% efficient. Not a single syllable would be uttered that would be of no use to somebody. And besides that, he will also look at how many devas are going to be joining this sermon, how many brahmas. So I said, we can't even begin to imagine how a Buddha might preach a sermon, but I can only think that this is probably how he might address his audience. There may be some occasions where he preached a sermon, but no one became a Sotapanna, because we're talking about human beings. Plenty of other beings out there. In the first sermon he gave, the Dhammsak Tevtum Sutradeshana, the wheel-turning discourse. One person became a Sotapanna, Kondanya, the first Sotapanna. Vappa, Badhya, Mahanam and Astaji are still Pruthakjanas, peel producers. What? What's a Pruthakjana? Potu Janita is what? Peel producer. No, don't use that. I just made that up. Someone who has no understanding of the Dhamma. I don't know an English word for Pruthakjana. If you can enlighten me, then I'd gladly take that from you. I don't know a word for that in English. A Pruthakjana, someone who is... Okay, that's a good one. Someone who's an ignoble person. Okay? So, but there were many, millions of devas who had attended that sermon. And they say, in the space of a pinhead, there were about 100,000 devas gathered to listen to that sermon. And at the end of that sermon, if you'll have read the Pirithvata, they'll say, the most primitive devas, the Bhumadu devas, having listened to the sermon, they gave an uproar. They rejoiced, an exaltation. Having listened to that, the devas who are superior to them gave similar exaltations, all the way up to the Brahma worlds. Buddha has just spoken. It's like, come all, be faithful, come and listen to this sermon and so on. But, these are the miracles of a Buddha that we can't even begin to imagine. So what we need to do really is to, because we don't know which sermon is going to help us become a Sotapanna. And we don't know, listening to who am I going to become a Sotapanna. That's why sometimes if you've come along to the meditation programs, something that I try and remind you all the time, it may be that the youngest monk that we have at the monastery is who you will have to listen to one day when he starts to preach to become a Sotapanna, because all this works on samsaric connections and death. Sasaraganadima, these are all. So if you have to wait until Vajrajnana Handru starts to preach the Dhamma, then you're going to have to wait a while. Until such time, no matter how much Guru Handru will talk to you about the Dhamma, or me or any other monk will talk to you, you will understand it but you won't comprehend it. But it might be just Vajrajnana Handru comes and sits here and says, Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, and that's all you will need. And at that point you become a Sotapanna. Because that is the connection that you have. It may be, madam, that you have to wait until your son becomes a Sotapanna for you to become one. Maybe. We don't know. Or it may be you have to wait until your pet dog dies, is reborn, a human, and then understands the Dhamma, becomes a Sotapanna, and then starts preaching. And that's when you will get it. We don't know. Yeah. These are samsaric connections, samsaric transactions. Yeah. Hmm. 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 Sure. There's the difference between understanding, logic, and the comprehension of it. Okay? Anyone who has intellect, anyone who has the brains for it, can work out the logic here. That how attachment leads to suffering. You know, if you have a reasonable mind that can reason, logical mind, you get it. But that moment where you need the, it's called the Partagosha Pratyaya. Again, I don't know the English term for it. It's possibly best put, it's like a spark, sort of like a catalyst for the reaction to quick start. That can only come from a Sotapanna, at least. That person has to be a noble person. Okay. Now, you can only get that also from someone who has understood and comprehended the Dhamma. But before you comprehend, you have to understand the Dhamma. So, it has to be logical. Now, when you listen to the teachings, you will be able to figure out, is this logical? Is what this Swamin Wahanse or this lay person teaching me, the Dhamma that I'm listening to, is it logical? That anyone with intellect can figure out. Right? You and I, we can all figure that out. Because we are intellects. We can understand it, makes sense. Okay? But understanding is not the same as comprehending. That comprehension, that point of comprehension, requires that spark that needs to come when you are listening to the Dhamma from someone who is at least a Sotapanna. But that can only also come from someone who has also comprehension of the same Dhamma that you have taken on board as being, this is viable, this is one that is logical, that is going to take me to Nibbana. So the reason that sometimes Guru Hamdru says, be careful about going looking for different paths to the teaching, different paths to salvation, is because ultimately there's only one path to salvation. Ultimately there's only one path to salvation. First, we must all understand it. So when you come across something that seems logical, at that point you stop looking. Right? So, for instance, if you've been listening to these sermons for a while and you're still thinking, no, I just don't get it. I don't see how this leads one to Nibbana. There are still lots of question marks. Right? You talk about attachment, but I don't see how attachment is what leads to suffering. I don't get it. I don't see how ignorance is what leads someone to attach. I don't get it. I just don't get that. I don't see why you say flowers are not beautiful because beauty is not in the flower. I don't get the gist. I don't get the idea. Then the logic hasn't sunken into your mind yet. So then, no matter how many Sotapannas sit here and talk to you, even if the Buddha was sat here and talked to you, you would just still wouldn't get it. Because first, the logic has to sink. First, that the understanding with the science behind it first has to make sense. The logic has to make sense. Coupled with that, you need to get that spark. That inspiration that comes from someone who is only a Sotapanna or above. Now that can come from anyone, but they must also be talking to you about that one path to Nibbana. So, if they say Buddhan Saranam Gacchami, I use that example, for instance, Buddhan Saranam Gacchami, where, of course, as we've talked before, Buddhan Saranam Gacchami has a more profound meaning. Right? We talk Bhava Uddha, that is the only Sarana, Saranasima, Gacchami. This is the path that I choose to seek. To take myself out of samsara. So again, when you say Buddhan Saranam Gacchami, you are talking about the Four Noble Truths, whether you know it or not. But the fact that attachment causes suffering, and how ignorance leads one to attach themselves, and how it's that relief from vexation that we experience as pleasure, that knowledge of it must already be with you. Now, for instance, someone like Upatissa, who later on became the great elder Sariputta, when he met with Asaji Maharatan Wahanse, if you remember, what the great elder Asaji said was, I don't know a lot of Dhamma, but I know very little, and what little I know I will tell you. So that's when he said, Ye dhamma hetu pabhava te sang hetu tathagato ah. So those two lines was enough for Upadishtha to become a Sotapanna. But if you analyze those two lines, it has the Four Noble Truths within them. So, in the way that the great elder Assaji delivered that sermon, both the spark that can only come from a noble one and the knowledge that's required to attain the noble attainment was there together. They both came at the same time. Therefore, all the requirements that one needs was there all at once. But it might be that maybe you go to someone, either a layperson or a clergy, who is not a Sotapanna. You can still learn the Dhamma from them. So you will go along to those sermons, you will learn the Dhamma, you'll really get the logic, but that spark won't come until you come and take a sermon from someone who's at least a Sotapanna, from a noble person. So then at that point you may not need the logic, because the logic you already have. You've taken from somebody else. But the noble attainment cannot come. You can't make that step. It's called Gotrabu. You can't make that step until you get to hear at least a word or a syllable from someone who's a Sotapanna. Do you remember how Guru Hanuman sometimes says, you're three-wheel driver. Pay attention to what they're saying, because it may be that they are a Sotapanna. So you will come to the monastery and you listen to the sermons. It will make sense. It makes full logic. But your sansaric connection is that the three-wheel driver is the one who will be making you a Sotapanna. So then, maybe all he has to say is, Madam, where did you go today? Where do you want me to take you? Oh, I went to the temple today. Oh, okay, what did you get to listen to? I was listening to Bana. So did they talk about anicca? That's all he has to say. It may be all that he has to say. You've been understanding anicca all this long. You came along to the sermons, anicca, dukkha, anatta, time and time again. Right? But the spark wasn't there, because that was to come from the three-wheel driver. So that happens due to a samsaric connection. Now, the thing is though, you know that although you are here, a lot of people that you have asked to come here are not here. A lot of your friends, relations, neighbors maybe, right? They're not here. Possibly, it's not from here they're going to get what they need to attain those noble attainments, to achieve those noble attainments. So samsara has a way of getting you to reconcile samsaric debt. Right? So, if there's a samsaric debt between you and I, or one of the monks at this monastery, or maybe a layperson today, maybe he's an anagarika today, yet to become a monk, if there's a samsaric debt, that it is through one of his sermons, one of his teachings, that you are going to be attaining that, you're going to be achieving that noble attainment, then that day will come, and what samsara is doing right now is creating the samanantara for that realization to happen. Because that's a reconciliation that has to happen at some point in samsara. So the understanding you can have, but the comprehension, that will only come when you get that spark. That catalyst has to come. Yes, sir. Of course. So it can be practiced. When we say knowledge from previous birth, if you have become a Sotapanna from the previous birth, and you are born as a Jata Sotapanna, your comprehension of anicca, dukkha, anatta will be there with you. But it may be that you are unable to describe it because you don't know the words. You'll have the feeling, the emotion, and the gut feel will be there, but you won't be able to describe it because memory doesn't last between two births. That generally doesn't happen like that. So you won't, sometimes you might have learned in Sinhala, but you won't remember the language now. This is why only your noble attainments will be there through birth, as well as the karma that you have done. Good karmas and bad karmas and so on. Everything else you have to leave behind. Right? But that samsaric debt when the time is prime for that reconciliation to happen, samsara will look after the hard part. It's like, is it easier to plant a seed or to grow a tree? Which one's easier? Plant a seed. If you plant the seed, add the manure and water and give it sunlight, the growing of a tree is a miracle. How a tree grows from a seed, I have no idea. That's just a miracle. That's the hard part. Converting a seed to a tree, that's the hard part. All we have to do is the easy part. Plant the seed, put some water, put some fertilizer, give it some sunlight. Just do the easy part. The hard part will look after itself. So likewise, what we are doing right now is really the easy part. Coming along to the sermons, listening to the sermons, trying to understand it as best we can. Sansaric death will put you in front of the person that will need to give you that kick for you to be able to really comprehend the Dhamma and become a noble one. How can you figure out who I need to go and listen to the Dhamma from? You don't know that. And if you can work that out, then actually you don't need it. By the time you can work that out, you don't need it anymore. It's a funny way how samsara works. When you want it, you don't have it. And when you don't want it, that's when you get it. It's like money, right? When you want it, you don't need it. When you have it, so when you want it, you don't have it. When you have it, you don't need it. So, what we try and encourage you to do is, in terms of going to sermons and so forth, why Guru Hamdra says, don't go looking for a lot of teachings, is because then you can become confused. Because all the monks and lay people out there, who preach the Dhamma, they'll all be preaching what they understand as being the path to salvation. And it's not for me to say one's right and one's wrong, because I have to be omniscient before I can say that. In other words, I have to be a supreme Buddha to be able to make that call. Right? So, because one might be teaching Paticcasamuppada, another might be teaching you about the Four Noble Truths, because these are all avenues to get you to the same realization. How many discourses? 84,000 discourses the Buddha gave. So actually there could be people out there who have picked a different discourse to actually get you to the same destination. All different paths to get you to one destination. Remember I gave you the example of learning to make a curry from two different chefs, and what might happen? If you switch chef halfway through, one guy writes a recipe, how to make a dal curry. Okay? You get a recipe book from one chef and start reading and going through it. The way he makes his dal curry is that halfway through, he's added too much salt. So therefore, the remainder of his recipe will be how do you reduce the too much saltiness in the curry. The following steps will be to address that issue. Now at that point you stop and you switch to another recipe book. But this guy's added too much spice. And from there on forward it will be how to fix that problem. Now if you switch between recipes halfway through, you're going to end up with a recipe, a dal curry, which is too salty and not enough spice. This is why when you try and mix and match, you can usually end up at the wrong place. So where you listen to the Dhamma and it seems logical and it's making sense to you how Nibbana can be achieved, and after all, we need to go by what the Tripitaka says, because who knows about who knows about Nirvana? The Buddha does. I can't attain Nibbana how I want to. I have to attain it how the Buddha wanted me to, because he's the one who knows, not me. So the only way I can get to Nibbana is how the Buddha taught me to get to Nibbana, not how I feel is right. And what the Buddha taught is now in the Tripitaka, because we don't have the great teacher to teach us. His teachings are in the Tripitaka. We study the Tripitaka, and not just because it's in the Tripitaka, but we study it and we using our intellect. For that, all you need is intellect and logic and a logical mind. You need a logical mind to work out, is this teaching, does it make sense? Because I remember as a young kid, it was not after I became a monk I first heard the word Nibbana. As a young kid I heard the word Nibbana. But when I asked people, either monks or lay people, how do I get to Nibbana? A lot of the times it was simply a case of, you can focus on your breath, right? Do some meditation and eventually you will get there. But the path wasn't clear to me. How does focusing on my breath get me to Nibbana? It will happen, just leave it. Allow enough time and it will happen. I wasn't happy to settle for that, because I couldn't see the path. There were so many question marks which people were unable to answer for me. And others said, let go, and then you will attain Nibbana. How do you let go? The how do I do it questions remained unanswered. What do I have to let go? Let go of your children, let go of your wife, let go of your house, let go of your parents. But I realized these are not things I can actually do. Because when I try and let go of something, the need and the want for it only starts to grow inside of me, and I want it even more than when I wanted it before. So I'm in a worse off place than when I started. So how does letting go get me to Nibbana? I didn't find the answer. Jesus said, just keep letting go. One day you will get to Nibbana. I wasn't happy with that. What if they said, go to school, one day you will get your degree. One day you'll get your A-levels. You didn't know that, you don't know the school system, that you start in grade 1, then you have to go to grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. This is your curriculum, this is how you get to grade 13, and after that you get your A-levels. Without any of that information, they say, go to grade 1, one day you'll get your A-level certificate. Would you take that course? That's just shooting in the dark. These were some of the places where I actually began to become quite reticent about walking this path to Dhamma, and I thought, what the hell is this? I became quite frustrated at one point in my life about Buddhism, about the religion that I was taught to believe in. Because all it's talking about is suffering, and how attachment gives me suffering, but I just couldn't work out how does that happen. Because best I can work out is the more I attach, the more pleasure I get to enjoy. So how can you say attachment leads to suffering? More money I have, the happier I am, right? Isn't that what made sense to us? If you have children, you'll be happy. Isn't that why we had children? If you get married, you'll be happy. So reading the books, it just didn't make sense. How is attachment leading to suffering? Because the intermediate steps were not explained to me. I couldn't see the path. I think it was Monday. Someone came and had a chat with me, and I gave them this example. Maybe it will make sense to you as well. Right? Imagine there's some kind of institution, like in Sri Lanka, or usually Sri Lanka, because that's all I have experience of nowadays. We go to an office, right, a public office or a government office or private sector, whatever. Right? You can usually get whatever you want done quite promptly. Yes? Yes? No? No? Okay. I'll let you decide that. So the guy walks into this office, right? He wants to get something done. The reason he walks into the office is he observes what kind of people go into this office. So he sees a guy walking in with some problems, and he sees the guy walking out happy. So he thinks, right, actually, you know what, I can get this. I need this. I need happiness. So I need to go through this office, to go through this process as well. So he walks in. He walks in and he sees 3 counters. Counter A, counter B, counter C. In the 3rd counter they say, we give you pleasure. So he walks up to counter C and he says, can I have some pleasure please? And at the counter they say, have you been to counter B yet? I said, no, I just want pleasure. He says, you give pleasure, so that's why I walked up to counter C. He said, no, so that's not how it works. You have to go to counter B first. Then you can come to counter C, and then we can serve you. So he walks up to counter B. There they say, we give you vexation. He says, so I have to take vexation and walk up to counter C? Yes. So can I have some? He says, no. You have to go to counter A first. So he walks up to counter A. Then he says, and at count 8 they say, we give you Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. So can I have some Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana? He says, of course. But you need to give us sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. So he's now at count 8. He says, sure, I can get you that. So he goes back out of the office and brings in sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. And you walk up to a currency exchange bureau, right? For every dollar you give, you get 5 rupees. Right? So that's the exchange rate they have at count 8, 1 to 5. So you bring in a sight and they give you one sight. How many do they give you? 5. Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. Then you bring in a sound. Then they give you again Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. So the exchange rate is 1 to 5. Right? So at count A, whatever you take, be that a sight, a sound, a smell, taste or touch, they'll give you Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. Now you ask, well actually I wanted pleasure, what do I do with this? This is not what I came in for. Now go to counter B. So taking these bags of Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, you walk up to counter B. At counter B, they give you vexation. In return, they ask for Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that you picked up from counter A. So you give it to them. And actually on the board it says attachment. That is the name of this counter. So you hand over the Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana you picked up from counter A, and at this counter they go tas on their computer, and out comes what? Vexation. So then you pick up the vexation bags that you got from counter B, and then you walk up to counter C, where they say Abhisankara. That's the name of the counter C, and this is where they give you pleasure. So now you give them the bags of vexation that you picked up from counter B, and again they go tas, and they give you pleasure. So this guy now walks out of the building with bags full of pleasure. Guy again observes from another guy standing outside. He looks at this guy who walks out of the building with bags full of pleasure. He thinks, what did you go in with? Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. Now he thinks, so if I go in with sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, I'm going to get pleasure. Because he hasn't walked into the office yet, so he doesn't know what's going on the inside. All these counters that you have to visit before you get to counter C, he has no idea about. All he sees is what went in and what came out. What went in was sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, which comes from the outside world. What this guy walks out with is bags full of pleasure. So he immediately thinks, if I go in with a sight, then I'm going to get pleasure. Therefore he thinks, sights bring me pleasure, sounds bring me pleasure, smells, taste and touch bring me pleasure. Therefore he begins to think, sights and sounds and smells and tastes and touch are pleasurable. Ashwadai. Because what this guy doesn't see is actually what's going on the inside. This is where I was. This is where I was. This is why when people said, let go. I mean seriously, think about it, right folks? When you don't see what's going on the inside, and if all you're doing is observing from the outside, you see a guy walking in with a sight, and you see this guy walking out with pleasure. How can I now convince this person that sights don't bring you pleasure? Would he not be a fool to accept that sights don't bring you pleasure without any knowledge of what's actually going on the inside? Are you getting what I'm trying to get across to you? For someone who all this guy is seeing is this guy walks in with a sight, with a sound, and he walks out with pleasure. Now how can I convince this person that sounds don't bring you pleasure? Because he's going to ask me, what do you mean? Look at that guy, he walked in with a sound, he came out with pleasure. So clearly, sounds bring you pleasure, sights bring you pleasure, smell, taste and touch bring you pleasure. Can't you see? He's going to ask me. Then I'm speechless because I don't know what's actually going on the inside until you open the hood, open the bonnet and look inside. Now you see what's actually going on. Now you realize actually before you walk to counter C, you have to walk to counter B, which was vexation. The vexation counter or the attachment counter, where actually what you had to do was suffer. It was the relief from the suffering, the relief from the vexation which gave you pleasure. Not the sight, nor the sound, nor the smell, taste or the touch. Because actually, at counter C, they don't accept sights. they don't accept it. Counter C is where they give you pleasure, yes, but they don't accept sight. They don't accept sound or smell or taste or touch. Because we can't process sight. You'll have to go to counter A first, get it exchanged for Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. Then walk up to counter B, get your Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana exchanged for vexation. Then you can come to us, and then we will exchange your vexation for pleasure. This is what ignorance is. As in not knowing what's going on under the bonnet. That's what ignorance is. Put it simply, ignorance is not knowing. Not knowing the truth. That's what ignorance is. This is what Paticcasamuppada explains also, dependent origination. We've spoken about this long time ago, I think when we were at Alanmathinara. Avidya Pacchaya Sankara, Sankara Pacchaya Vijnana, Namarupa, Salayatana, and so on and so forth. Because at the point of Namarupa, this is where the vexation starts to happen. Expectation has come into the mind. Vijnana Pacchaya Namarupa. This is expectation, the start of expectation. Now Rupa Pacchaya Salayatana. Now your senses are sent on an errand. Go and bring me the sight, sound, smells, taste and touch that I believe are pleasurable. Why do I say I believe? Because where did this start? What was the root? Ignorance. Avidya Pacchaya Sankara. Salayatana Pacchaya Passa. Then ultimately the senses, they go out and they bring the sight, sound, smell, taste and touch, and now it has been delivered on the mind. Delivered to the mind. Passa Pacchaya Vedana. So the mind now receives and it knows and it feels that these have just come in. Then it does the comparison. Is this what I asked for? Based on that, tanha. If it matches, then you have attachment. Because it's pleasurable. Of course, pleasurable. That is the Sapa Vedana. Vedana Pacchaya Tanha. Not Dukkha Vedana Pacchaya Tanha. Sukha Vedana Pacchaya Tanha. Then of course you have the Upadana, Bhava, Jati. Right? Jati of suffering. Not pleasure. This is Jati, suffering. Because what has just arisen? The source of suffering is what has arisen. Child is the source of suffering. Even that's also Jati. Someone comes and kidnaps your child, and Guru Hamdul gives his example in the sermon. Right? Someone kidnaps your child and asks for a ransom. Right? If you know that the child is going to be looked after, going to be given a good education, right? Then really the parent shouldn't worry about it. But no, you do. If I were you, I'd say, I'm going to charge you a ransom for bringing the child back. You've taken my child now. If you want to bring it back, then I charge you 5 million rupees. I won't take my child back until you give me 5 million. Keep it. Finders keepers. You keep it now. What freedom? what freedom it is? Yeah? No child, no anymore. So you don't need to worry about it now. But no, you can't do like that because state law requires that as a parent you are responsible for your child's well-being. So if someone does kidnap your child, then you're going to have to go and find the child. Otherwise you can be sued in a court of law. So just because you want to become a monk or a nun, right? Someone kidnaps your child because people might get ideas, and they might actually hire someone to kidnap the child, and then right now I don't have child, I can now go and fulfill my path. And it doesn't work like that, because in a court of law you'll be found guilty. If you brought the child into this world, now it's your responsibility to look after it. It's too late to rewind that. But, for some parents, I believe, it is because of your child, a path to Nibbana has opened up for you. Right? Some parents, I think, they when you come and talk to us and, the things that we sense, for some parents, it's because they had a child. For some husbands, it's because they got married. Consider me, for instance. As a lay person, right? I had no idea. I didn't want anything to do with the Dhamma. I had completely lost my hope and interest in it, having been taught stuff that just didn't make sense. And as I said, it was only after I became a monk I started to even chant Karanimetta Sutra. Before that, I hadn't memorized it. I didn't know it. It was only after I became a monk. Right? So it was my lay wife who actually got me into the Dhamma and got me interested in giving a dana, giving alms to the temple, and got me interested in this path. So perhaps if I hadn't gotten married as a lay person, maybe I wouldn't be here today. I don't know that. I can't. But all I can see is, everyone who touched my life has only done good to me. That's all I can say. Even at the time, if I might have felt that what they brought me was disaster, or hurt and blame and pain, I don't see that way now. Everything that happened in my life was a blessing. It is thanks to all those experiences that I had, positive and positive. Positive and positive. No negative. It seemed like it was the negatives back then, but now while I see it, positives and positives that brought me here. Just think, right? One change in your life and you might not have been here today. You might not be here today. Those of you who are married, if you hadn't been married, perhaps you wouldn't be here right now. Those of you who have children, if you hadn't had a child, you probably might not be here right now. For those of you who got made redundant, if not for that, you may not be here right now. If you have children who got addicted to drugs, whatever, alcohol, sex, whatever, you might not be here right now. It may be that was the trigger for you to be here today. Perhaps there are parents whose children might have committed suicide. Maybe that was the trigger for the parent to come and seek refuge in the Dhamma. Ultimately, something got you here. So whatever happened in your life, I don't believe in repenting or being sorry for myself. What's the point? What's happened has happened. And all I see it is, whatever happened in my life, they were all paving the path for me to be here today. Some people, if you went blind, maybe that's why you're here today. You lost everything you had. Maybe that's why you're here today. Or you're a billionaire. Maybe that's why you're here today. If you had grown into a poor family, become completely unsuccessful in your life, maybe you wouldn't be here today. That's why I say, don't regret about the things that have happened in your life. One, it's pointless. And two, those are the things that have shaped your life so that you're here today. If you're glad that you have found the Dhamma, if you believe that you have found the Dhamma in fact, then all those things that have happened in your life, these are all blessings in disguise. Be thankful that they happened in your life. That's not to say that let anyone come and do anything to you from here on forward. Right? Be careful who you let into your life. But those decisions that you have made in your life are the things that have gotten you thus far. So I have no regrets. I do believe that there were things that I spent my time doing, and I see that they were not any value add to my path to Nibbana. And sometimes, I do say to you, can someone come and shoot me in the head for the things that I used to do as a lay person, right? Going after sensual pleasures, sensual delights, when actually pleasure didn't exist in those places. But I mean that in a critical way about finding sensual pleasures in a worldly existence. Not in terms of those experiences were a curse on me. Actually, no, those experiences were a blessing to me. Perhaps, if I hadn't travelled, I might not be here today. I met Guru Handru, who was only a lay Deshakutuma when I was in the UK. Had I not been there, perhaps that meeting would never have happened. Had I not met the friends that I did, who invited me to come along to one of the sermons, I might not be here today. I might still be out there, spending a lay life and finding sensual pleasures and still be lost. So up until this point, whatever has happened to me has happened for the best, is what I believe. This is only a personal opinion. You may wish to differ from that. But it's just a personal way I believe. The past is not for us to change. The past is... Some people use the past as a club. A club can be used for two things. One, to beat yourself up with. And two, to hang out in. There are two types of clubs, right? One you can beat yourself with. And two, you can go and hang out in one. Like when you go clubbing. The past is neither of these. So don't use the past as a club. Use it as a school. The past is not a club. The past is a school to learn from. To learn from so you can make the decisions you have to make in the present. So that you can get to the destination you want to be in the future. So don't regret. Don't have regrets. Pointless. You regret about what happened yesterday. Now what? So what? I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that. Okay, so? But if you use it as a school, if you utilize it as a learning experience, it was wrong for me to do that, so I should not do that ever again. Now you take a lesson from that, so you don't do it again. Therefore you have a better future. That is what you must use it for. Continue to appreciate the value of your life, folks. Never forget that. Sometimes something I always feel. As we talked about samsaric debts and reconciliation of samsaric debts, right? Every one of you is still out there reconciling your samsaric debts. Because people who come into your life will make a call on how much your life is worth. Right? If at your workplace, what's the going rate nowadays per day? What's the average? How much do people earn? Rupees? 35,000 per month? Average salary, is it? Roughly speaking. So let's say 1,000, 1,500 rupees a day. Roughly speaking. Right? If that's how much your employer is paying you, then you're reconciling a samsaric debt here. Because whatever the true value of human life is, minus 1,500, what are you paying in? What are you paying in? Human life. If you're getting paid 1,500 rupees per day, take 2,000 rupees a day, that's what you're getting paid per day, then whatever the value of human life is, and that is equal for all of us. Your human life is valuable as much as mine, madam. And it's the same for all of us. No matter what your age is, the value of human life is the same for all of us. In terms of how much we have struggled to have been born human. The struggle would have been the same, give or take. Right? So, if you're earning 2,000 rupees a day for spending 8 hours of your day at your workplace, then whatever the value of human life is, deduct 2,000 rupees, that much you're actually paying back to them in samsaric debt reconciliations. So you're paying more than you're getting out of it. Think about it. So, okay, someone says, actually no, Swaminathan, not 2,000, I get 10,000 rupees. Okay. What is 10,000 compared to the value of a human day? Give me a ratio. 1 to? I say infinity. So take away 10,000 from infinity. What's the answer? By that much, you're actually paying back to the company. Not really paying back to the company, but actually reconciling samsaric debts. Debts that you owe people. Okay, now you're a mother. Isn't that reconciliation of samsaric debts? And you don't even get paid for it. Who here charges their child for being a mother? You're not even getting paid for it. This is 100% paying back samsaric debts. Mother-child relationships. Because all they can give you is pleasure, but that pleasure is from relief from your own vexations. Nothing else. You make up your own vexations and you begin to relieve yourself from it. But as a mother, you give things to your child. Food, clothing, shelter, medicine. This is paying back debts. So you labor, you toil, you work hard to pay these debts back to your child. Good. Try and reconcile as many of your samsaric debts as possible. Now my question is, for how long are you going to keep doing this? Do you have a question, madam? Yes, go on. Okay. When we live in samsara, this is what we are all doing right now. Think about, why am I preaching this sermon to you right now? What do you think I'm doing? I'm paying back debts that I owe all of you. When I transfer merits at the end of the sermon, okay, as I do at the beginning of the sermon before I sit on this seat, and I've told you this before when I worship the Buddha, I make a determination that may each and every one of you be able to understand this Dhamma, because I see all of you as being parents to me, mothers and fathers. You have all been, ever since I became a monk anyway, right? Because it is you who sheltered me, who gave me clothing, who gave me food, and so on and so forth. But putting that aside for a moment, in this infinitely long journey in samsara, there's not a single one of you who hasn't been a mother to me. Not a single one of you who hasn't been a father to me. So actually, I'm your child. As much as I'm your father. As much as I'm your mother, and a brother, and a sister. So we're all family. Okay? So this is me paying back debts. So if you give me a gilampasa at the end of this sermon, that is a debt being paid in one way. If you as much as offer someone a glass of water, why does the beggar stop at your house and didn't go to the one next door? Because there was a samsaric debt to be reconciled. That's why they stopped there and not next door. Why did you, when you hailed a taxi, why did that guy stop there? And why did the guy before that just drive past? Because there was a transaction that was due to be reconciled there. It's difficult for us to say what was the exact nature of the transaction. That I don't know, and I can't even begin to comprehend. But these are all transactions that we have had, we've brought along in samsara. Now, paying back samsaric debts is not a bad thing. But in the process of paying back these samsaric debts, we sometimes have to exert ourselves in ways which can be quite painful. A mother nurturing her child in her womb for 9 months. I've never been a mother, not certainly in this birth, but for those who have been will know how painful that is. This is paying samsaric debts. Okay? So, if you calculate all the debts that you have ever taken up in samsara, we're going to have to be here for infinity and beyond to repay all those debts. The reason that we are here in samsara is because of our attachment. Do you remember the metaphor that Guru Handro gave, I think it was yesterday or on Wednesday, where he said, 2 people walk up to you, one's holding you, the other's beating you up. Right? So, who do you think is the one that you need to free yourself from? The answer is both. Right? Because, of course, one guy's beating you up, but he can only beat you up because the other guy's holding you. So they're both bringing you pain. They're responsible for bringing you pain. So what he used this example for, or this metaphor was to help you understand, the guy who's holding you, this is attachment, this is raga, desire. Your attachment to samsara is what's keeping you in place in samsara. The other party, the guys who's hitting you, beating you up, these are all the karmas you've done in the past. And samsaric debts being reconciled. I hit, therefore I am now getting hit. Why? Because I'm here. So, one who realizes this needs to get out of here. To get out of here, for as long as you have not been caught up by one of these, the guy who's holding you, until he or she catches you, you can't be beaten up. So the guy who is getting beaten up, his primary objective must be to try and escape from the hold. So if he breaks loose, then the guy who wants to hit cannot hit. So it's our attachment that keeps us in place in samsara, which is creating the samanantara for all the karmas and all the debts that we have taken up in samsara to come forth and to bear fruit. The karmas we've done to bear fruit, and these samsaric debtors coming back asking for repayment of the debts. The good you've done in samsara will bring back rewards. These are the rewards of merits you've done in samsara. In one sense, you can't complain about that. But again, you do know that with the arising and passing away of the mind, even something that brings you pleasure is ultimately going to lead to pain. This is the pan to the fire that Guru Hamil talks about, Kabaling Lipatu. Right? So even pleasure, when you begin to understand the Dhamma, you see as being, there's nothing really that's actually pleasure, it's simply pain. But what keeps you bound to samsara is your attachment. And that is the ignorance, that actually there is pleasure to be found in the world, therefore I shall remain in samsara. But you can't pick and choose who your next visitor is. It might be pleasure that is brought to you, or it might be someone who's walking up to hit you. So it could be friend or foe that walks up to you in the next moment. Who here knows what karma is going to be brought upon them in the next moment? We don't know that. It could be friend, it could be foe. Right? But for as long as you remain here, you will have to meet them, no matter who arrives. It could be friend, it could be foe. You don't know who's going to come because they don't come with warning. Either the rewards of good karmas or the consequences of bad karmas, they'll come up to you when it comes. You don't know when. It's uncertain. Therefore, for as long as we remain here, we will have to succumb to whatever comes in front of us. We will have to bear and tolerate that. Now that's not so fun. That's not what we want to achieve. We want to get out of here so that neither friend nor foe comes to visit us. Because we know now, even if it's a friend, ultimately, with the passing away of the mind, it's ultimately pain anyway. So be that friend or foe, it's ultimately pain. Therefore, it's pointless hanging around. Therefore, let's rid ourselves of attachment. In other words, staying put in this place. To rid yourself of attachment, you have to rid yourself of ignorance. So rid ignorance, there goes away attachment, and in other words, you are no longer staying put, waiting for some either friend or foe to pay you a visit. Now, for as long as you're here, you have to pay your samsaric debts. If you've travelled, then when you have taken up a debt in that country, usually they get, this information goes into the systems, right? So when you're about to leave the country, usually they'll do a check and they'll go, you have these debts that you haven't paid off yet. So we can't let you go until you have cleared your debts. So then you have to repay your debts. If they know, if they get wind that actually you're going for good and you're never going to be coming back, then they will demand for repayment. This is why, I said, the Buddha, I think one day I shared this with you, this sentiment that, in the way I see it, the Buddha is one who came along to rig the system. He completely rigged the system. If there's one person you can find who didn't comply with the system, that's the Buddha. He didn't comply with the system. He said, I don't want to be responsible for the bad that I've done. I don't want to suffer pain and torture for the bad that I have done. I want to get out of here. So it's okay for him to do bad, but it's also okay for him, he doesn't want to suffer because of the bad he's done. So he said, I want to get out of here. This is completely rigging the system. This is not how the system was made to work. Absolutely, sir. Yes. Some of the debts which will only be repaid in the four great health, If say you've had a dog, you've kept a dog, and this dog you never looked after, all you did was treat the animal poorly, kick the animal, didn't feed the animal, right? Perhaps because of the misdeeds you've done, this deserves your birth in the four great hells as another dog, so that those debts can be repaid by who used to be the dog now has become the master, and the master has now become the dog. So the reconciliation of the debt is how it's due to happen. But by becoming a Sotapanna, you have closed the gates to the four hells once and for all. So therefore you can never be born a dog again, and therefore those sansaric debts cannot be reconciled anymore. You have shut the gates. So they cannot happen now. Right? It's a write-off, yes. So when you become an anagami, for instance, all those sansaric debts, and when by sansaric debts I also include all the bad karmas you've done, okay? So all that inclusive, because it can be good and bad. If Sivali Maharatan Vahanse would be around today, he would still be receiving alms for all the alms that he'd given, all the giving away that he'd done, because he was chief disciple of the Buddha and chief among those who received the requisites from others, because that's how much he had given. But if you think the Buddha was around today, do you not think he would receive alms? When you offer me a meal, why do you think I am deserving of it? Do we get what we want, or do we get what we deserve? We deserve. So if you offer me a meal today, it's because I have offered you something back in the past. Remember even the Buddha, when he went once on alms, this is the incident that triggered the great elder Kashyapa to renounce life in the village and actually go and start living in the forest, in the thick of the forest, because he was going on alms with the Buddha. And on one occasion there was this lady who had offered him some sweet cakes, the Buddha, and later on he realized that this is not the Buddha. He actually wanted to offer it to Kashyapa, the great elder. So the lady came back and actually asked for the sweet cake from the Buddha, not realizing the significance of what she's doing here. She didn't realize actually this is my master's master. She didn't realize that. So she took that out of the bowl, and then the Buddha began to wonder, how come someone like me, who's perfected the art of giving like no one else, how come I wasn't deserving of this? And then he realized, this one lady I had never offered anything as much as a dime in this infinitely long journey in samsara. Therefore, I am not deserving of her charity. I am not deserving of anything that she has to offer me. Certainly not food, at least on this occasion. So what I don't deserve, I don't get. So therefore, it was taken back. So, this is his reflection. So there's a lesson for us here. So therefore, if you have offered me a meal today, it may be, right, one of you might put some food into my alms bowl. If I haven't offered you any food which you have then later on consumed, perhaps I have given you something, but as you were about to consume, I took it away. In fact, that's what happened in the example I gave you before in the Buddha's life. It may be that the Buddha had offered something to the lady as a bodhisattva, but as she was about to consume it, he took it back. So he was deserving of the meal being offered, but he wasn't deserving to be able to eat it. So if I had offered you something and then taken it away, it may be that you will put it into my alms bowl, but as I bring it and sit down to eat, maybe I'll drop my alms bowl and all the food will be on the floor. Or you'll come and ask it for it to be returned. Samsaric debts. So the problem here is, if you consider, just thinking about this life, the good you have done versus the bad you have done, the ratio again is 1 to infinity. So how can we expect then to live a happy life? Forget about past births. No, seriously, forget about past births and ask yourself, in this life, how much good versus how much bad you've done. And I'm talking about every chitta. Right? Every time you got angry, how intense was the anger? Every time you felt desire, how intense were those feelings? It's either raga, dvesha, moha or lobha, dvesha, moha. How intense were those feelings? Have you never lied? Have you never killed? Have you never stolen? Never backstabbed? never engaged in frivolous speech. These are all things we've all done. Right? So even if you forget, put aside past lives, the things we've done in this life, if we were to stay alive, hang around to suffer the consequences of the deeds we've done in this birth, it's enough to take us for a very long time in samsara. That's enough to take us for a very long time in samsara. Right? So this is the problem. We've done more bad than good. Therefore, hanging around, expecting only good stuff to be coming around on the conveyor belt is madness. This is why we need to get out of here. And even if it's the good stuff, still we know now that with the arising and passing away of the mind, as long as there's attachment, there's only going to be suffering at the end of it. So really, there's no such thing as good out there. Hopefully you get what I'm trying to get across here. There's no such thing as a good feeling or a pleasurable feeling, enjoyable, because ultimately it all leads to suffering. So if you take the end result, there's only suffering out there, not happiness. So there's no good and bad. Ultimately there's only bad and bad. Bad and worse. So, you can't find pleasure out there. It's only pain. It's only suffering. Then when you get that that understanding, I have to ask the question, why do you want to hang around? No, the letting go will happen, Madam, based on your wisdom. So, yeah. Your karmic influence will be as far as being able to understand the Dhamma. This is why, it can happen, yes. Right? So, why do we always seek forgiveness from the noble ones, the Aryupada, and seek forgiveness from that before we start a sermon? Because there could be the bad karmas that we have done, which will come and hinder our understanding, and because that environment has to be created, where when you're listening to the Dhamma, you are able to understand it. The environment has to be created, but the bad karmas we've done, it may manifest itself whereby the moment that you're about to hear something where this is what is required for you to make that next jump, you start to feel hunger, or you get a headache. That very moment, you start to get a headache. Now, your mind shifts. And now you are not paying attention to what's going on. Sometimes it might be someone makes a noise. Someone interrupts your attention. Someone disrupts you. Someone sneezes. That's enough. This is why we say, as much as you possibly can when you're in a sermon, try and restrain yourself and don't interrupt other people. Because sometimes what you do will one day come back to bite you. So therefore, if you're sat in a sermon and you're being quite noisy, it may be that one day when you're in that same situation, trying to understand the Dhamma, paying very close attention, someone else in the room will start to be noisy. This is sometimes paying reconciliation of samsaric death. And therefore, when the Dhamma is being preached, exactly what you need to hear, at that moment, someone sneezes. Or you feel hunger, you get a headache, you start to scratch somewhere, you feel an itch. These things can happen. So, we can't play hide and seek with karma. That's pointless. My point to you here is, not let's try and work out how to deal with karma. We can't deal with karma. That's beyond. It's far superior and it's above the Buddha. Even the Buddha has to succumb to when it comes to karma. He's secondary. Even he has to bow his head in front of karma. Remember, even the Buddha had to suffer the consequences of the bad deeds that he had done as a Bodhisattva. Not as a Buddha, but as a Bodhisattva. Why do you think the Bodhisattva had to go through asceticism for 6 years? These are all results of bad karmas he'd done as a Bodhisattva in the past. I think on one occasion where there was either a Pase Budu or a Buddha, I can't remember exactly, he was asked to come and listen to the teaching. And on 6 occasions, the Bodhisattva had said, "No, I don't mind. I'm not really interested. He can keep his teaching. I don't want it." On 6 occasions, he'd said that, and for each of those occasions, he had to suffer 1 year. That's why 6 years of asceticism. 6 years, 1 year per 1 rejection. How long did it take for him to say, "No, I don't want it. Let him keep it"? Hardly a minute, but when it comes back in terms of consequences, now it's a whole year to repay that. Because it comes back with interest. And then it's very painful. So this is, and that was an Aripad. So that was a noble desecration. So this is why we have to be very careful about how we conduct ourselves with noble ones. How we address them, how we talk to them, right? And of course, it has to come with intention. Just because you have a style of talking doesn't mean you have to change that style in front of a noble person. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, if you have intention to insult them, then it's best that you don't associate them. If you have intention to hurt their feelings, it's best that you don't associate them, because that association can do you more harm than good. It's intent, because ultimately it's only intention that can bring you, that can lead to karma. Say there's one guy, and the way he talks is, he just says, he speaks quite loudly, or he speaks not in a very refined way. That's just the way he talks. So you can't say that just because that guy is talking to an arahant that he's committing aripad. You can't say like that. It depends on what that person's intention is. Sometimes he might be speaking in very soft words, but the intention is to insult that person. Now that can be quite calamitous. So in the Buddha's life, he's shown us with example where bad karmas can lead you. There were plenty of occasions where the Buddha could have, through his supernatural powers, influenced, at least to reduce the amount of pain that he had to suffer because of the karmas that he'd done. But he refrained from doing that, because he wanted himself to be an example to other people. Even the Buddha has to succumb when it comes to karma. Karma is beyond me. Karma is above me. I can't control my karma. Kammasta komhi, kamma dayado, kamma patisarana, kamma yoni, kamma patisarana, kamma bandhu, yang kammang karissamiti, kalyanang va papa kamma. Karma is my kinsman. Karma is my heir. It's the karma that determines either good or bad, where I'm going to be led to next. So the only thing we can do really is to get out of this circle of influence from the karma. For as long as we are in samsara, karma gets to call the shots. Jump and then we jump. Sit and we sit. It's like, what's that game we play? Simon says? Is it Simon says? Simon says jump, you jump. So really, karma says jump, you jump. Karma says sit, sit. Karma says walk, walk. Karma says die, now die. Karma says be born, be born. But if you get outside of the circle of influence of karma, where you are not born, then karma doesn't get to call the shots anymore. The karma that you have done is still there in the karma bhava, but it can't bear fruit, because there has to be the samanantara. You have to be there for you to be either able to reward, bear the consequences, or the rewards of the good you've done. Sir? Beg your pardon? Oh, wow. I don't know. Because I can't claim to be an expert in karma. To be fair, I never will be. All I do know is karma is universal to everyone. Everyone and each and every one of us. It doesn't discriminate. It's very fair. Karma is fair. Things that happen to you, not unfair, it's always fair. Because it's what we get is what we deserve. So karma is always fair and it's universal. What we need to do is to get out of the circle of influence of karma so that we no longer have to suffer for the bad that we have done. It sounds unfair, but that is the truth. It's like you walk into a court, right? You get questioned, what bad have you done? What have you done? Confess, and you begin to confess. I murdered this person, right? So you will be given a death sentence. And your response is, no, I don't want it. I don't want it. Or if someone says, I've stolen, I confess. Okay, you will be sentenced to 5 years in prison. No, I don't want it. Sounds unfair, right? If you've done the bad deed, then you have to suffer. The Buddha says, no, I don't want it. So as followers of the Buddha, as his students, we have a path whereby if we walk that path, we can get to a state where we don't have to suffer the consequences of the bad that we have done. Is it rigging the system or not? Completely. Entirely rigging the system. Not playing by the rules of the game. This is getting out of the game. For as long as we're in the game, we are bound by the rules of the game. What we are trying to do is get out of the game so that the rules of the game no longer apply to us. It's like the Matrix. The rules don't apply. Rules of physics don't apply while you're connected to the computer. If you watch the Matrix, you will know. Right? So it's like that. Getting out of here so that those rules don't apply. Rules of karma don't apply. Where karma is no longer your kinsman. Where karma is no longer your heir. Where karma no longer gets to call the shots. Because you can only do that if you're around. If you're not here, I can't do anything to you. Can I? No. If I'm karma, what do you want to do? Be around where I am or not be with me? You don't want to be with me. The reason for that is because I know everything you've done. All the good you've done, as well as all the bad you've done. Now when I start to weigh them up, the good you've done is minuscule, next to nothing compared to all the bad you've done. So what do you think I want to bring to you first? Good or bad? Of course. I want to get you to suffer for all the bad you've done before I start to pay you the good. Right? So what you need to do is try to get as far away from me as possible if I was karma. Sir? It's a question that gets asked quite often. It's a good question. But in the world of karma, negative and positive don't cancel each other out. The positives will have their own rewards and the negatives will have their own consequences. They don't nullify like that. If had that been the case, right, why do you think the Buddha would have suffered at all? The amount of good that he's done, if you put it on the scale, at least from our vantage point, looks like he's done no bad at all. But even then, he had to suffer for the bad that he'd done. So, good brings you good, bad brings you bad. One doesn't cancel the other out. So if you have debts, you have to pay them. If you have savings, you get your interest. So just because you have savings in one bank and a debt in another bank, they don't cancel each other out. You have to pay the debt and you get the money from your interest. Or your fixed deposit or whatever. So that's how it works. It doesn't nullify. Thankfully. Because if you consider all the bad that we've done, thankfully they don't cancel each other out. Because then all of us should not be here right now. We should be in the 4 great hells. If that were the case. Because for every good we've done a billion bad things. So thankfully that's not how it works. We have just about managed to achieve and secure this human life because of some good that we've done. Some tremendous good that we've done. And now we have the chance to stop playing the game. Get out of this. circle of influence. This chance we don't have always. When you're not in the Sugatiya, when you're not in the blissful plane, you don't have the choice of not playing the game. You don't have the choice of getting out. Then you're bound by the rules and regulations, and you don't have a choice. Once in a while you get a chance to choose. Do you want to stay or do you want to go? And that chance only comes once in a very, very, very long time. So now you and I, we all have that chance. But everyone out there, every Tom, Dick and Harry is far too busy living and enjoying the merits of the good that they have done. That's what they're all doing out there. They're consuming all the merit that they have done. But once that's all consumed, it's back to business. Actually, we're all on holiday. This is a very short holiday we're all on. It's a weekend break compared to this long journey in samsara. Having been born human is it's not even a long weekend. It's just a weekend break, having been born human. But everyone out there, they're busy, far too busy living their weekend, enjoying their weekend break, going out and seeing the parks, walking around, going to the zoos, right? Having fun, dancing and clubbing and drinking and doing all those things, not realizing that this break is going to come to an end pretty soon. And then it's back to work. This is, I always try and remind you, just consider how fortunate you are. I know I say it time and time again, but it's never enough. No matter how often I say it, it's never enough. You really, really, really need to get this. There's no other way out. That's the problem. There's no other way out. All the praying, it's not going to get you out of here. All the alms you give, it's not going to get you out of here. You can feed me every day until I die. It's not going to get you out of here. Every katina pinkama that we have at the monastery, you can lead it, you can take ownership and you can do it. It's not going to get you out of here. Only thing that's going to get you out of here is the Dhamma. And how far you have comprehended the Dhamma. Not understood it, not learnt it, not by-hearted it. How much you have comprehended it. In other words, how much you have enabled the letting go to happen. How much you have let go happen. How much letting go has happened, essentially. Because remember, it's like that friend holding you in one place while the others come in and hitting you. What we need to do is get out of the grasp of the guy who's holding you. So when you're not being held in one place, now the other guy can't hit you up, can't beat you up. That's what we're trying to do. This is where, as I said at the beginning, the Buddha's purpose of coming into this world is not to teach us to let go. It's to teach us to realize the truth. Because when we see the truth, then letting go will naturally happen. It will just happen automatically. So all the things you are attached to right now, okay, in whatever capacity that you are attached to, is because you haven't seen the truth behind them. So if you are still attached to your wife, it's because you haven't seen the truth. If you are attached to your child, you haven't seen the truth. If you are attached to your house, you haven't seen the truth. You're still ignorant. Simple. That's the only reason. You're ignorant. If you're attached to your job, and that job you're attached to not for sustenance, but more for pleasure, then you haven't seen the truth. No matter, whatever you want to apply, whatever you want to substitute into that equation. If you're attached to food, if you're attached to particular tastes, if you're attached to colors, if you're attached to games, if you're attached to music, if you're attached to whatever, it's because you're ignorant. Simple. In other words, you don't know the truth about them. You can only love something that you don't really understand. Sounds ironical, doesn't it? You can only love someone that you don't fully understand. Do you love your wife? Why is that? You don't understand her. Yes or no? If you love your husband, why do you love your husband? It's because you don't understand him. The day you understand your wife, you will not love her. Sounds like madness. Do you not feel sometimes I've gone mad? Some of the things I say? If you were just to listen to that bit of the sermon, you'd think, this man's gone mad. The reason you love your wife is because you haven't understood her. What? Why do you love your children, madam? Because you haven't understood them. The day you understand your wife, your husband, your child, you will not love them. Because understanding, or comprehension even, is really realizing that they're only sources of pain, never pleasure. And that is what I mean by that. Because that statement is quite profound, and it's only, you can only understand it if you're wise enough to get it. Right? To understand something really is to realize that what I'm attached to, what I love, is only a source of pain. So you love pain, not pleasure. You're in love with pain. This is self-torture. Stop torturing yourself. Come on. Seriously, what are you doing? Why are you torturing yourself? Rather what, sorry sir? The moment you love something, love is another word for attachment, right? The moment you love or attach yourself to something, you are now subjecting yourself to the pain. Because it's not the object that brings us pain. It's our own attachment that brings us pain. So it would be incorrect to say that there is nothing out there. Because ultimately when we talk about, even if it's the mind, right? There's Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. We can't say that it's not out there because it's there. And otherwise how do we sense the world? Sight, sound, smell, taste and touch, it's there. One could argue, well, is it really there? Or is that just energies, right? These are discussions that are really not really worth having. Because we don't need to worry about that level of detail. Because we all know that we suffer. Now, that's not news to anyone, is it? You suffer, is that news? News alert, you suffer. No, we all know that we suffer. What we are trying to figure out is why do we suffer? So to think that there's nothing out there, therefore let's not attach ourselves to nothing. Okay, then try and do it and show me. Because that's when we start to get into the realm of there's nothing there. Attain, yes, basically. Nothingness. There's nothing, therefore we attach to nothing, so why attach when there's nothing? That's not what the Buddha taught anyway. The Buddha's teaching is, it's not whether it's out there or not. What matters is you're attached. Even if it's not there, you're still attached. Right, guy, let's say Santa. As a young child, I was attached to Santa. Santa wasn't there, but I was still attached to it, to Santa, it, him. I don't know. Not there. So how can I say whether it's an it or a him? So whether it's actually there or not is not what matters. What matters is wherever there is attachment, whether it's there or not, you will still suffer. Because what we attach to is because of the pleasure that we experience. Or rather, reason for attachment is the pleasure that we experience. And that pleasure is relief from vexation. That vexation is the cause of attachment, and that expectation comes from the belief that whatever idea I hold can bring me pleasure, whether it's an object, whether it's something that doesn't even exist. I mean, like in the Asanya world, they still hold on to the belief that nothingness can bring me pleasure. Nothing is out there, and therefore I experience pleasure, I'm attached to that pleasure. So now they're going to be born in the asanya world, where there is nothing. Nothing as in nothing material. But the mind still exists. The mind still exists, arises and passes away, and therefore there is attachment because of ignorance, and that ignorance leads you to attachment and therefore suffering. So our focus needs to be not on whether there's something out there to attach to or not, but rather attachment leads to suffering. Therefore, we need to rid ourselves of attachment. Does that answer your question, sir? Mm-hmm. Sure, okay. Absolutely, yes. 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 So Buddha talks about, yes, nothing worthwhile. Yes. Nothing worthwhile to be attached to, because there's nothing that's actually going to bring a source of pleasure. Because if it's pleasure, if it is for the purpose of pleasure that we attach. Why do we attach? Because there's a promise of pleasure, right? When there is no source of pleasure, now why do we attach? Then there is no reason to attach. So the Buddha talks about shunya, which is void, but void of happiness, void of pleasure, not void of anything else. Void of pleasure, this is where he says asara. Essenceless, meaningless, futile, useless, right? Useless and futile, attachment is pointless because there's nothing out there that brings us happiness. Nothing out there that brings us happiness, nothing out there that is a source of pleasure. So void of pleasure, shunya of ashvada. Ashvada and shunya. Therefore there's no point in attaching. If you're hungry, is this going to be of any help? No, but this might be. Because this is void of anything that can sate your hunger. So, if a man wants a child, it's no good getting married to a barren woman, because she's not capable of bearing child. She's void of the capability to bear child. Likewise, all these sight, sound, smells, taste and touch and rupa, vedana, sanya, sankara, vijnana, they're barren of what? Pleasure. So there's no point in getting married to one in the hope of expecting a child, because it's never going to happen. Not because she can and she won't, but she just simply can't. Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana can't. Not that they can and they won't, but actually no, they can't bring pleasure because they are void of pleasure. So you're right. They are void of pleasure, therefore attachment is meaningless and pointless, because there's nothing that can actually bring us pleasure. Think about, why did you grow flowers at home? Not because they're flowers. We grow flowers at home because flowers are beautiful. Or so we think. Who here likes to grow ugly flowers? No one. So you like to grow what flowers? Beautiful flowers. Are there beautiful flowers? No. Then why do you grow flowers? Ignorance. So the day you realize that there is nothing called beauty to be found in flowers, good point there. Just think about it, right? None of you grew ugly flowers, did you? If I walked into your garden right now, would I find flowers? Look at these flowers, so ugly, aren't they? You'd never even, you'd never say something like that. If they were ugly, you wouldn't grow it, right? So you grew them because they were beautiful. The day you realize that actually beauty is not in the flower, would you then grow them? No. Otherwise, you would have grown ugly flowers also. If you grew flowers because they were flowers, you would have grown ugly flowers. But you didn't grow ugly flowers. You planted the seeds and you watered them and you catered them, you tended to them and you looked after them because you thought they were beautiful, not because they were flowers. Are you all in agreement with what I'm saying here? You didn't grow your garden because they were flowers. You grew flowers because they were beautiful flowers. But then when the day comes where you realize beauty is not in the flower, what else do you have to gain from flowers? Unless there's a beehive somewhere and you want the bees to feed on the nectar, then perhaps you might grow it, but then that's a different reason. Not for the beauty. Now you grow the flowers because you have a source of food, and indirectly source of food. Then growing flowers is reasonable. But if I ask you, why do you grow the flowers? Beautiful. Unreasonable. Why? You can't reason out. You didn't get married to your husband because he was a man. Otherwise, there's plenty of men out there. You could have married any one of them. You married that particular person. You were particular about that person. Why? Good looking. Right? I liked how he talked to me. Smells nice. Maybe. I'm not going to say the rest. You can work it out. Okay? So, remove all of them out. Now, you're not going to get married to that person. Because they're not a source of pleasure anymore. So you wouldn't do things just because. You do them for pleasure. So, when proven to you that pleasure is a fantasy, pleasure is a lie, pleasure is false, pleasure is just a fabrication of the mind, now you will no longer attach yourselves. This is the difference between attachment and ignorance. Ignorance is beauty, sweet smelling or lovely, yummy, all of these. This is all ignorance. Remove them out of the picture. Take them out, not forcefully, through understanding. Take them out, and then you will realize, well, what's the point of attachment? You will lose the point of attachment. Attachment becomes meaningless, pointless. That's why you will not attach. Not because I say so, not because someone says it's bad to attach. No. There will be no point in attaching. Because attachment can only bring you suffering. Never pleasure. Never good. Attachment can never do you any good. Attachment can only do you bad. We don't see that. We see that attachment actually brings me good. Brings me hope. It's worthwhile. Take that out of the picture. Now attachment only brings me suffering. So why attach them? Yes or no? Yeah. Yes, sir. So this is the practical application. That's all it is. It's a practical application. Because, remember, throughout samsara, right, all you've been doing is practicing anicca, dukkha and anatta. Yes? Really? Throughout samsara we've been practicing nicca, sukha, atta. This is why I say you're all not new to meditation. You're very familiar with meditation. You've just been meditating the wrong thing. That's all. Meditation is nothing other than contemplation. We've all been contemplating on the world as being nicca, sukha, atta, pleasurable, joyful and essence-full, meaningful. Worthy of attachment. That's a good one for sara. Worthy of attachment. So asara would be unworthy of attachment. Right? So this is what we've been practicing. So even a lie, when said enough number of times, becomes the truth. Right? So when we've always looked at the world as being nicca, sukha, atta, now to all of a sudden expect our mind to accept, no, actually this is anicca, dukkha, anatta. It's not ready to accept that immediately. Because this, over many years, many births, many millions, trillions, or throughout samsara, we've practiced the opposite of this. What was turning one way, we're not only stopping, but also we're trying to turn the other way. So there's complete inertia here. We have to overcome inertia and get it to go the other way. So that is where the practical application is required. When we give you the Dhamma, that is simply the theory. This is how you do it. These are the steps you need to involve, and this is how often you should do it, and so on and so forth. But the doing it is only something you can do. So, we still grow flowers? Yes. You still watch TV? Yes. You still like to go out to eat? Yes. I get that. Those things will happen through practical application. Through practical application, whenever the need arises, whenever the urge arises, right? So, you want to watch TV. I don't see if there's anything wrong with that, because it's not one of the 10 unmeritorious deeds. If it were an unmeritorious deed, I'd say don't do it on any account. Watching TV, that's not an unmeritorious deed. Growing flowers, that's not an unmeritorious deed, so I would never say don't do it. What I would say is, while you're doing it, reflect on it, contemplate on it. Why am I doing this? Why is it that I like to grow flowers? Why is it that I like to watch TV? Why is it that I like to eat chocolates? Why is it that I like to eat chocolate cake? Reflect on that. And then ask yourself why. Then you realize you're unreasonable. You realize you can't reason it out. You realize I like to grow flowers. One might say it's my hobby. Why do I need a hobby? You need a job, I get that. Because you need a source of income. Why do you need a hobby? I get bored. Why do you get bored? Because I have no one to talk to. So why is that a problem? Because I like to talk to someone. Why? I like to keep talking to someone. I like to keep chatting with someone. Just always have something to do. Why? Ask yourself why. Become a reasonable person. You keep asking yourself why. Like these pesky kids. You get do this. Why, Ami? No, don't ask why. Do it. Why, Ami? They not become annoying? I was quite annoying to my parents. Like when I asked them, where did I come from? Where did Mali come from? They didn't like that question. But I kept asking. They said it was the swamps. And they brought them and dropped them down the chimney. And finally, that's how I came into this world. I always said, I have been fostered. See, they agreed with me. Anyway, that's besides the point. So, what I'm trying to say is, reflect on it and ask yourself why. Keep asking until you can get to a reasonable answer. This is meditation, sir. Contemplation. You're contemplating. Why? Asking yourself questions. And then you'll get to a point where you say, I don't know why. Because ultimately you'll get to, this is beautiful, this is why. Then you have to ask, why is this beautiful? Then you don't, from that point forward, unless you take the Dhamma, you won't be able to answer that question. So with the Dhamma applied, now you realize beauty is nothing other than relief from vexation, and this is what the mind experiences when it uses a sight to relieve yourself from vexation. Then you tell yourself, so you see, you find this beautiful. This is why you grow flowers, right? Yes, this is because it's beautiful. Do you know now then that all you are doing is relieving yourself from vexation? I get that. Okay? So really, this is reduction in suffering than anything else. You were suffering 100 units, now you are suffering 80 units. The 20 difference is what you experience as pleasure. Do you like to continue to suffer? Ask the mind. To which obviously any sane mind would go, no, I don't like to suffer. Well then, the only way you can do that is to rid yourself of attachment. Because you're attached to that. And the mind rises and passes away. Then you are back in a state of vexation. Right? Then you go through this abhisankara process to see that sight again and again and again and again. To relieve yourself from vexation. So for as long as you're attached, that vexation will persist. It will prevail. So the only way you can truly be happy is to rid yourself of attachment. Then you can still grow flowers. That's okay. You can still grow flowers. You can still eat chocolate, no problem. But don't let yourself vex about it. Did you all eat buns yesterday? Did you enjoy that? How was that torture? Was that not torture? Yes. So this is what Guru Hamra said, right? You could be the richest man alive, you could be the most educated person, you could be the most good-looking person alive. But with a bun in your hand a simple bun can completely destroy your sanity. It can put you on your knees, steal your happiness. What? A bun. Why? Attachment. And are you okay with that? This is the question you have to ask yourself, really. When I say ask your mind, ask yourself, am I okay with becoming a dog in front of a bun? Salivating in front of a bun? Am I okay with that? Should someone like me have to succumb to that kind of, state? Fall to that kind of state? Is that the kind of person I am? Ask yourself. Is it better to not have a rash or to have a rash and keep scratching yourself? Ask yourself. Is it better to have a headache and take a paracetamol or not to have the headache in the first place? Ask yourself. Any sane mind can only come up with one answer. It's better not to have the rash. It's better not to have the headache. It's better not to have the pain than to relieve yourself from the pain and enjoy the gain. Right? Because ultimately gain is nothing other than reduction in pain. Because when you get to zero pain, can you any longer experience gain? No. When you get to zero pain, you can no longer experience gain. No longer can you experience pleasure. No longer can you experience happiness. So that goes to show that pleasure is not something that came from the outside. It was simply reduction in pain. There has to be pain to reduce. Keep reducing it until it gets to zero. Now, no more pleasure. Yeah. 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 Yes. So the reason for saliva filling in your mouth, even for an arahant, if food was placed in an arahant's mouth, saliva would probably secrete from the salivary glands. I can only assume, because I don't know how an arahant's body would function or how his mind would function, but I can only assume that when food is placed in the mouth, then the secretory or the salivary glands will start to secrete saliva. But the problem that we have is without the bun even going into our mouth, while it's still in our hand, still saliva starts to come. All I need to do is talk to you about buns. I can hear your tummies rumbling from here. So there's a problem with that, right? Because why do you need saliva when there's no bun to digest? So an arahant's nature would be, there will probably be sufficient amount of saliva to digest the bun, but not anymore. Or at least until the bun goes into the mouth, there won't be any secretion of saliva. Because what is the point? And besides, an arahant would be able to keep that piece of bun in his mouth for as long as is required, without the mind telling him, swallow the bloody thing. Because that vexation, as it touches our tongue and as we feel that going through our mouth, all these are pleasurable sensations for us, but not for an arahant. Your favorite item of food, how long can you put it in front of you and keep watching it? Keep looking and staring at it without a single moment where your mind's telling you, eat it, when there's no hunger? You just ask yourself, every time you've eaten, have you never had those days where you've eaten far too much? Eaten more than you could stomach? Right? Sometimes you couldn't even walk and you start to loosen your belt. Have you never had those days? When you go to the buffet, how do you eat? Like food's going out of fashion, right? Why? Because we don't eat for what eating was designed for. Eating was brought into this world to help us to put out hunger, to sate our hunger, and to help us, our bodies, get the nutrition it needs. That's what food came into this world for. But that's not what we use it for. We use it to seek pleasure from it. Through sight and sound and smell and taste and touch. Through all these feelings, through all these senses, we enjoy our food. The fried rice. Why do we have so many types of rice? There's fried rice, there's biryani, there's white rice, there's yellow rice, there's rice with sultanas, right? Cashew rice. How many types of rice are there? Lamp rice? Why do you need so many types of rice? If the purpose of rice is to sate our hunger, then why does it matter how it comes? Yeah. Why do people have to stir fry rice? Why? All these inventions were really to help people relieve themselves of vexation. But for that vexation to first come into the mind, someone gave the idea, someone put an advert on the TV or some kind of newspaper article or some kind of magazine or whatever and said, this food, you must try it. And then from that moment on, the mind starts to vex. Just ask yourself, last time you went into a restaurant, okay, the chef brings the menu, you order the food item, right? From the time between you ordering the item of food and the food arriving on your plate or arriving in front of you, how do you feel? How's your stomach feeling right now? In that time, there's a war going on in there, right? There's a battle going on in there. If you only held a stethoscope to someone's stomach at that time, you'd probably go deaf. Because of all the noises that you hear, all the rumbling that's going on in the stomach. Why? Because there's the promise. Your body has already gone into waiting. I'm waiting. I know I'm going to be experiencing pleasure in a moment. Just can't wait for it. And wait and wait and wait and wait and wait, and finally they bring the dish in front of you. Now, feast. How many of you, if you ever, when you go shopping at the supermarket, right? Let's say you found something that you think is, it's a bite or some kind of delicious item of food, maybe crisps or fries or something like that, and you thought, right, I'm going to bring this home and eat it. How many of you actually opened the packet up and started eating on the way home because you couldn't wait until you got home? Just ask yourself, you've never done this? Whether it's chocolate, crisps, all these things that people find yummy, right? Takeaway. Got a pizza. How many of you couldn't actually wait until you got home before you started it? You opened the box and started, gorging yourself on it. Why? Because your mind can't wait. Your stomach can. Your mind can't wait. Because there's the promise of pleasure. So when you come across these situations, these are moments to actually do your meditation. These are fantastic moments to meditate. Really. These are the best moments to meditate. Because if meditation is a battle, then your enemies have now come in front of you. This is the best time to fight. Your enemies are in front of you. Because when you come to these meditation sessions, you have to wait for the enemy to come. You go, hey enemies, come here, come here, come here. You got to call them. You got to summon your enemies. But when you're living your real lives, day-to-day lives, your enemies come in front of you without being summoned. Now you can battle. Now you can fight them. So, practically, I suggest you try and do this. Right? Next time you sit down to eat. Okay? So you have your food served on your plate, like you did yesterday. Put it on the table. Watch it for a few moments. Look at your dish. Right? Observe all the items of food that you have prepared for yourself. It could be rice or noodles or whatever you've served yourself to eat. Now, do you ask yourself, are there any items of food that you find more pleasurable than others? Are there any items of food where you're drawn to more than others? Right? You see, for some people it could be an egg, others it could be a piece of chicken or a sausage or whatever, right? These are generally things that people find yummy. Just ask yourself, if you have a piece of chicken on your plate, isn't that usually the last thing to get eaten? It always remains. At least a small portion gets remained till the end. Because that is your promise. Eat the rest. Keep the pleasure. You eat the rest of it and finally that last bit of chicken goes into your mouth. Or that last bit of sausage goes into your mouth because you want to end it with a party. Why does the mallum remain? Eat all the rice and then finally eat the mallum. Oh yes, I get to eat my mallum now. Usually those things go in first. The things that you don't like to eat. You keep watching the things that you like to eat and get rid of the things that you don't like to eat. Because, this is painful. Eating the mallum is painful. But you look at your sausage. That's good. So, I know it's coming. Wait, all I have to do is wait. I just need to get through this mallum and then finally I get my sausage. Oh, the yummy chicken drumstick? Wait. Oh, you wait. I'm gonna give you one hell of a shot. Just wait. If only that chicken came alive, he would run, knowing the oncoming danger that is about to face. Because in a moment, it's going to be devoured by a beast. Because all that vexation that was building up in front of you, in your mind, right? If only that chicken could sense that. Because it knows, right, you're leaving me to the last, as the last item, because you want that vexation is building up in your mind. So these are moments to really contemplate. This is what we do when we do the Pratyaveksha. Before we eat, right, it's not just the stanza that we recite. We look at our alms bowl and ask ourselves, are there particular items of food that you find more pleasurable than others? Back in the time of the Buddha, there were monks who used to practice this, whereby when they go on alms, if they have been served something in their alms bowl, right? If they found that there was a particular item of food that they were waiting to get back to the monastery to consume, they would find that detesting about themselves. They would detest the fact that those feelings came into their mind, and what they would do is they'd put down their alms bowl, sit down on the side of the road and start to meditate until that desire to consume that item of food has gone from the mind. And there will have been occasions when the time that you are allowed to consume food within, which has passed by, and then that's it, they're not going to be having that food. But to them, extinguishing that desire is more important than filling their stomachs with food. That is the kind of effort that is required for someone who wants to actually achieve this result. So in your practical day-to-day lives, before you start to eat, at least try it out for a week. Homework. This week, try that out. Right before you have your lunch, food served, put it in front of you. Observe your plate. Just give it 1 minute. You know how Christians, they say grace. They hold each other's hands sometimes, right? You will have seen in films and things like that. This is them being grateful. Thank the Lord for putting this meal in front of us. What a great thing to do. Because they're practicing gratefulness. That's what saying grace is about. You can do that. Not say grace, but be grateful. Something I do when I take my meal is I reflect on the food that I have and ask myself, is there anything I like particularly than others? And if there is something, then I blame myself for it. I scold myself about it, and I tell myself off for it, and then I contemplate on that. Why? Why do you find this more delicious than the other thing? I keep asking myself, and I reflect on the fact that this is simply attachment and ignorance that's getting the better of me. And then before I consume it, I give merits to all those who have taken trouble to put this meal in front of me. From the farmers to the animals who have helped in plowing the fields, to everybody who might have cooked this meal. Everyone and anyone who will have gotten involved in preparing this meal, it is thanks to them that I'm able to consume this meal. So why can't you do that at home? This is why I said, becoming a monk, part of that you can practice from your, in a worldly life, in your lay life. Donning robes is not what you need to be hasty about. We call this the siura, right? The robe, siura. Ura is another word for shoulders. It's a singular word for shoulders. Deura. The other two shoulders. Siura. Siu is 4. Ura, shoulders. 4 shoulders. But here we're talking about the 4 noble truths. So become someone who can bear the 4 noble truths in their mind before you become someone who bears a robe. For that you can remain a layperson and do that. What you need to be hasty about is not to ordain yourself physically, but to become a monk in the way you look at the world. Ordain your mind before you ordain your body. Otherwise, this becomes torturous. If you are not ready to become a monk and you come and become a monk, oh God, I tell you, it's painful. It's very painful, excruciating. Because you will have lots of vexations you will want to relieve yourself from, but there will not be paths to do that. You will not be able to fulfill them. Then the pressure keeps building and building and building and building, and one day it's going to blow up. And that day, you will bring a lot of shame upon yourself as well as others and on the Sambuddha-shasana, and that's not good. It's better to have lived a lay life and work through your vexations rather than become a monk and then not having been able to focus, not having had the peace of mind to focus on your true vexations, but rather disciplining yourself because of the rules of conduct and then destroying your life by doing that. Only someone who has ordained their mind is actually capable of bearing robes and living by the code of conduct that the Buddha has given. Because this robe it actually belongs to Arahants. This is they are the heirs of the robe. We borrow it. We borrow it. This is how we consider. It's something we borrow from the Arahants, from our forefathers, the Arahants, from the Buddha, to help us on this path, to get to the destination that we want to get to. It's not rightfully mine, really. This robe is not rightfully mine until I have rid my mind of all the defilements. Until then, it's a borrowed item of clothing. It's not rightfully mine. Although you have given it to me, it's not rightfully mine. So, use these moments to reflect. That is practical application. If you grow flowers, it's okay. I'm not saying stop it, because it's not an unwholesome deed. And perhaps, you grow flowers, you use the flowers to offer to the Buddha. Wow, what a great thing to do. I asked you all some time back to start offering some water in the morning. If you have a Buddha statue at home, hopefully you have started doing that now. If you haven't, start. And I told you how to contemplate on that. Right? This is clean water. Clean glass, clean water. Like a clean mind and clean thoughts. Clean as in free of all defilements. So when I used to wake up as a layperson, I used to make myself a cup of tea and I used to go and offer the clean glass of water to the Buddha. Now I juxtapose the two, put the two together and compare the two. This is my state of mind, this is the Buddha's state of mind. Clean glass, clean water. My mind, it's muddy. Look at it. It's colored, tainted. I'm not proud about that. So every day has to be a fight to get to a clean state of mind. Back when I used to make my tea as a layperson, so we put in pure milk, fresh milk, and then of course the tea goes cold. Then you have to stick it in the microwave and then heat it up. Right? That's how we used to make our cup of tea back in the UK. So then as it went round in the microwave, I was thinking, that's like me going around in samsara, heating up as it goes around in the microwave. Why? Because it's tainted. So I need to get to a state of mind where my mind is free of these defilements. I want my mind to be like the glass of water I have offered to the Buddha. So that's the reflection that you can do. When you offer flowers, you can reflect on that. When you offer incense sticks, you can reflect on that. We've talked about this in the past. An incense stick gives off sweet smells, pleasant smells to everyone in the vicinity, everyone in the surroundings. Ask yourself, are my actions and my words like that? The people that I touch with words, how do I leave them? In a pleasant state of mind or in a defiled state of mind? Am I like this incense stick or not? If not, change. You can change. So all these offerings that you do, they have a great resemblance to, or rather they have a great significance in terms of your practicing of the path. But reflect, particularly wherever you experience pleasure. These are the moments that will take you closer to fulfilling your wisdom. Reflect on the moments of pleasure. It might be there's a particular movie you like to watch. Watch it. I don't say don't. Because if I say don't, will you not do it now? You can still do it. Besides, if you want to watch it and you don't watch it, the pressure is going to keep building up. And one day you're going to explode. That day you're going to go and sit in front of the TV and you'll watch it 10 times over. Well, better to just watch it once now, rather than watching it 10 times over. But as you watch it, ask yourself, why do I find watching this movie pleasurable? What is pleasure? Now start questioning yourself, asking yourself. Always interview your mind. Get into an interview with your mind. Ask yourself, why? Keep asking why. Until you get to some reasonable answers. Don't let your mind be unreasonable. Hold it accountable. Hold your mind accountable. Because every time you have suffered in samsara, who's accountable? Your mind is accountable. So hold it accountable. It's because of you I have suffered so much in samsara. It's because of you. Now, give me answers. Come on, speak up, give me answers. It's because you find this, that and the other pleasurable that I have suffered in samsara. Give me answers. Why do you find them pleasurable? Ask your mind. Why do you find those flowers beautiful? Why do you find that song beautiful? Why? Give me answers. Be fearless. Ask your mind. And when the mind fails to answer, now bring in the Dhamma. And say, right, although you don't have answers, I have answers. Let me give you the Dhamma. Now, refute them if you can. I dare you. Pleasure is nothing other than relief from vexation. You have been vexed all along. You can argue with me all you like, but you can't refute me. You can't dispute anything I'm telling you right now. Talk to your mind. Challenge your mind. And eventually the mind is going to have to accept what you say. Say, yep, I get it. All right, I get it. Well, then you say, well, then do as I say then. Slowly win the mind over. You can do this. You just need to do it. Then you can do it. If you do it, you can do it. Of course. If you don't do it, then you can't do it. Of course. If you do it, you can do it. But there's a big if. People should do, they could do, but they don't do. Why not? It's easy to do and it's easy not to do. That's why. It's easy to do and it's easy not to do. Remember I told you last week? Why don't people eat their apple a day? It's easy to do, right? Eating an apple a day? How is it to eat an apple a day? So easy to eat an apple a day. But why don't people do it? It's easy not to do. How easy is it to brush your teeth every night before you sleep? How easy? So easy. So why don't people do it? Because it's easy not to do. That's why. That's why people don't do it. It's easy not to do. It's easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. Don't be like that. As a closing remark, I'll remind you what I said last week. I hope at least some of you got, because I really wanted to drill that into your minds. Right? Nibbana is easy. It is. Don't wish for it to be easier. It's as easy as it can be. It can't be any easier than that. It's as easy as it can be Don't wish it was easier. Wish that you were better. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skill. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skill. Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better. Because in becoming better, you will become great. It doesn't matter whether you reach your destination or not. That's not what matters. It's what you become in the process that matters. In the process of becoming better, in the process of getting to your destination, you will become better. You will. You absolutely will. Anyone here has already attained Nibbana? Put your hand up. No, but are you not better than who you used to be a year ago? Are you not proud about that? Seriously, are you not proud of who you are today compared to who you used to be? But none of you have attained Nibbana yet, or so you tell me. What matters then is not whether you have attained Nibbana or not. What matters is what you have become, who you have become in the process of getting to your destination. That's what matters. Focus on that. Work on that. And eventually you will get to your destination. That has been given a cast iron guarantee. You will. Don't worry about the destination. Just work on the present moment. Work on getting there. Not work on there. Work on getting there. Then you will get there. Because if you look far ahead and see Nibbana, you're going to think, I'm never going to get there. And then you'll feel disheartened and you'll give up. I'm never going to get there. I can't even imagine free of desire, free of aversion, free of delusion. Never. I'm never going to be able to do that. What do you tell me? I'm going to see a flower and not see it as being beautiful? Never going to get there. No. Don't worry about the destination. Work on the now. Work on what you have to do now. Just reflect. Simple, see? How easy is it to reflect? Anicca dukkha anatta. How easy is it? So easy. So why don't you do it? It's easy to do. So it's easy not to do. That's right. I'll say this finally. Out of all of you and those who are listening in online, right? I say, at best, 5% will do this. 95 won't. My question to you is, which of these two do you want to be part of? Do you want to be part of the 5% or do you want to be part of the 95%? Good. The 5% who will do this will do it because they will do it. The 95% who won't do this won't do it because they won't do it. That's why. Some people come and ask me, Swaminas, I keep trying, why can't I? I don't get it, I just can't do this. So the best I can tell them is, people like you, they never do this. People like you never seem to achieve the results because you just don't do it. Although you keep telling you do it, you can't be doing it. If you're doing it, you can do it. You can. Try this, seriously, try it, and you can. You seriously can. I swear to you, you can. If you do it. If you don't do it, you can't do it. If you can do it, you can do it. And you will do it. Okay. Is it in saying hello today? English? Just for your information, some of you will know that we've been doing a monthly sermon to some young children in Canada. It started off as talking to the children because, of course, when you are further away from the monastery, when you're not even in the country, they're looking for the Dhamma, and they need it, and they want it, right? So this monthly sessions we've been doing for some time now, and then eventually it turned into children, and then the parents had questions as well after the end of the sermon. So actually today after this sermon I have to do that. But in future, if there are either yourselves or those listening to this sermon online in other countries where you can get together as a group, and there may be sometimes friends and family of yours who are abroad, and if there are a bunch of people who can get together as a group and want to listen to the Dhamma in these kind of sessions where you can set up a Skype call or something like that, then we are making arrangements to provide that facility to you. So if you have that need, then please let Mr. Chandna, I don't know if any of you know him, or at least Ms. Umanda know about it, and she can help coordinate that and make it happen. It will not necessarily be myself, there will be other monks who will get involved from time to time, but the purpose of that is not necessarily for you because you can come along to the monastery, but there may be friends of yours, family of yours, maybe to your children who live in those countries who don't get this opportunity. So for them, these are not one-to-one sessions because we can't kind of cater to that. It's not feasible. But if they can get together as a group, then we have plans to help those people there as well. So if you have that need, then please pass on the message to Mr. Chandna. Particularly if you are connected online, then you will know the name. Or those of you here, then please speak to Ms. Umanda and she can help coordinate that as well. Okay. So we'll chant the Arya Maitri and we'll bring the sermon to an end.
May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fire of birth, freed from the fire of decay, freed from the fire of illness, freed from the fire of death, freed from the fire of sorrow, freed from the fire of lamentation, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fire of suffering, freed from the fire of discontentment, freed from the fire of exhaustion, freed from the fire of disappointment, freed from the fire of clinging on to the five aggregates, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the suffering of samsara, freed from the disease of samsara, freed from the fear of samsara, freed from the fire of samsara, freed from the burning of samsara, freed from the sorrow of samsara, freed from the lust of samsara, freed from the clutches of samsara, freed from the flames of samsara, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. The karma worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the karma worlds. The rupa worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the rupa worlds. The arupa worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the arupa worlds. All worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from all the worlds. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Letting go is the only salvation. May I and all beings let go. Detachment is the only salvation. May I and all beings be detached. Being freed is the only salvation. May I and all beings be freed. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the bondage of lust, freed from the bondage of aversion, freed from the bondage of delusion, freed from the bondage of Mara, healed with the eternal bliss of Nibbana, 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 healed with the eternal bliss of Nibbana. Okay. I can't emphasize enough the importance of taking action. If I could, I'd come up to your house every day and say, have you done it? Are you doing your 15-minute meditation sessions? I'm going to ask you at the next meditation program. So I have warned you now. I think it's next week or the week after. So I'm going to ask you, are you doing your 15-minute meditation sessions? If you are doing it, you will do it. If you're not doing it, you won't do it. Practical application is what makes the difference. 5% here are doing it, 95% aren't doing it. I can guarantee that. 95% aren't doing it. They know they should, and they could, but they won't. The 5% know they should, and they can, and they will, and they do it. That's why they will make progress, and that's why they will achieve it. So, I emphasize again, do it. Do it. Please do it. See, I'm begging you now. Please. Because if you don't attain Nibbana, how can I? So please do it. Yeah? Do it for your own good. Okay. So let's transfer merits and we'll bring the sermon to an end. First and foremost, let us once again remind ourselves that it's because of the Supremely Enlightened One, the Perfect One, the Omniscient One, the infinitely compassionate Supreme Buddha that we have the gift of Dhamma today. It is because he sacrificed himself over many, countless aeons in samsara towards the liberation of all sentient beings, including you and I, that we are able today to redeem ourselves from the shackles and samsara once and for all. Let us also not forget for a moment the Bhikkhu Bhikkhunis and Upasaka Upasikas who since time immemorial protected and preserved the Dhamma and passed it down to us in its current form, in the form of the Tripitaka. It is thanks to them that today we can study it, analyze it, understand it and comprehend it. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, as well as all the members of the Mahasangha who are resident throughout the world, who have dedicated their lives to practicing the path, as well as expounding the Buddha's Dhamma, so that other beings, just like you and I, are able to redeem ourselves from samsara. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Let us also not for a moment forget the members of the Mahasangha, the bhikkhus and the nuns who are resident in your local temples and in your local nunneries. It is they who have always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. It is they who conduct the Dhampasal for your children. It is they who have always been to support you at the time of a death in the family, or perhaps a time to celebrate. So let us take a moment to pass on the merits to them as well. They are also monks and nuns who don robes for the sole purpose of attaining Nibbana, and today they have put aside some of that time for your well-being. So it is only right and it is our duty to pass on the merits that we have all acquired to them. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to the Devas, Brahmas, spirits, demons and the dead who joined us at the start of this sermon. All those beings who will have been mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, nephews, nieces, grandparents, husbands and wives, and children and teachers, and in any way, shape, form or capacity in which they may have connected with you or supported you, assisted you and shaped your lives for the better, not just in this birth but also in previous births. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. If any of them have today been born in the woeful planes, may through the power of these merits they will redeem themselves and be born in the blissful planes, and may through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to all the members of all the monks who are resident at this monastery, including Guru Hamdun Mahanse, as well as all the other monks, and the Anagarikas, as well as everyone else who will have helped make this event a success, either by organizing the event or by perhaps offering you the opportunity to join, either in person or online, perhaps by ushering you a seat, or maybe offering you a glass of water, or perhaps by providing you with transport. In whatever shape or form, in whatever capacity someone or anyone might have helped you to be here today, to be present here today, to listen to this sermon, may they all be able to rejoice in the merits that they have all acquired today. May through the power of these merits they be able to redeem themselves, or rather abstain from the unwholesome deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to all the members of your family who are among the living to this date, as well as your colleagues and employers with whom you work. It is thanks to them and they taking up part of your duties and responsibilities, and therefore relieving yourself of such duties and responsibilities that you are able to be here today and to listen to this sermon and work towards your salvation. It is thanks to them that you are able to enjoy that privilege, so may they be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to the members of the armed forces as well as the police force, those men and women who have dedicated their lives and committed their time and their lives to protecting and preserving this country and enabling us to practice the path in peace and harmony. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. And particularly those men and women who will have lost their lives in the long war that we had in Sri Lanka, as well as in the recent times of turmoil. Be they friend or foe, may they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, bearing in mind that no matter who they are, what creed, what race, what religion they believe in, what belief systems they might be holding, one day they will have all been a mother to us, one day they will have all been a father to us. Bearing that in mind, bearing that gratitude in mind, let us take a moment to transfer merits to them, as well as all those men and women and children who might have lost their lives in natural calamities and disasters such as hailstorms and tsunamis and so on and so forth. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. If any of them have today been born in the woeful plains, may through the power of these merits they redeem themselves from the woeful plains and be born in the blissful plains. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unwholesome deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to men and women who have dedicated their lives to leading this country, protecting this country and developing this country. It is thanks to them that today you and I are not having to dedicate our time towards that and practice the Dhamma. May they be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May they all be able to abstain from the unwholesome deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may through the course of all the merits that you have all acquired today, from the very start of the day all towards this evening, in making offerings to the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha, in making your venerations to them, in offering them dana and so on and so forth, offering flowers, incense sticks, lighting oil lamps, listen to the Dhamma, preaching the Dhamma, reflecting on Anicca Dukkha Anatta, chanting the Arya Maitreya, as well as in transferring merit, which is also another meritorious deed. May through the power of all these merits that we have all acquired today, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of Arahatan Mahanses in this blessed land, in this very life itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may you and I, and everyone who has come along to this sermon, who has joined this sermon in person, as well as online, as well as all other supernatural beings who might have joined us, Devas, Brahmas, so on and so forth, be able to become one of those Arahatan Mahanses, one of those Arahat Mehenin Mahanses, in this very life itself and in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Members of the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginnen idetva, dvesha ginnen idetva, moha ginnen idetva, Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo. Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Tunuruwange suvisi ananta maha guna belen silu loka silu sattayoma Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of desire. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of aversion. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of delusion. May I and all beings in all worlds attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. May the noble triple gem be with you all forever. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.